Okay.
Everybody, welcome to episode number 3 of the podcast. Chris and I were just talking. We forgot to hit the record button. So, Chris, wind up a little bit.
Okay. I was on the phone talking to one of our members of our Toastmasters group. And
Wait, before you define, if people may not know what Toastmasters is, just tell them a little bit about Toastmasters.
if you don't know what Toastmasters is, you're missing out on something. Toastmasters is an international organization that's devoted to developing public speaking and leadership. It started as public speaking. It's
Yeah,
got chapters all around the world.
yeah,
Obviously, in the U.S., most of them speak English. Other countries speak other languages, but there are some even in the area that have Chinese and Spanish and other languages. But the idea is that you join a chapter. There are dues, but you have a structured meeting in which you learn how to reply to questions ad hoc on the fly, be able to speak. Also, you learn how to develop speeches, and you get feedback to improve.
yeah,
And no matter if your goal is to become a very emotional speaker, a motivational speaker, to give presentations, whatever it is, you will get feedback that's beneficial to that.
yeah,
And it's been something that I wanted to join, or I heard about when I was in my 20s, and I thought to join, but I actually didn't join until I was in my 40s.
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think both of us belong to the same club. We've
Yep.
both been there for a while. I mean, I've been a member for over like 15 years, I think, or something. And I kind of come and go. I don't know how long you've been there, but as
Well,
long as
the fact that you moved out of state and yet you still go to the same club tells something about that club. So, if
yeah,
anyone
when I
wants
was
information about our specific club, you can reach out to us and we'll tell you about our club. But
yeah, our club is
regardless,
very good. Our
well,
club is very
it
good.
is one of the better ones. When I was an area director, I managed or oversaw 4 different clubs,
Yeah.
and 2 of them were not that great. 2 of them, one of them was ours, and one of them was another one, and they were up to par. I mean, the structure is an important part of it. Having an agenda and following it is an incredibly important part of it. But
Yeah, there was when I was, what is it, governor, right? No, director, whatever. They used to be governor. Um,
mhm.
and then I was talking to somebody why they renamed it, because apparently in other countries, if you were a governor of something, they didn't like you, so they'd kill you. So then I think Toastmasters changed the name to director.
Well, that's kind of funny because my old company, they created a separate division for a department. They called it a division, and certain countries didn't like the word division because it was associated with military, and they didn't
Yeah,
want. And
yeah.
so we had a. Sorry, I went off topic there, but if anyone wants to join, I definitely recommend Toastmasters to everyone.
Yeah, I think it's really good. When I was the director, I think I had 4 clubs as well too.
Hmm.
And 2 or 3 of them were really bad. I mean, I don't even know why I mean, they're horrible actually. But then there was one I would say that might have been as good, maybe even a hair better than our club. I'm not sure. They were very well run for
It's
what.
probably I may have been the same area as you because that was the same thing. Even the clubs that are struggling, I still give them, kudos and for attempting to have a club. You know, having a good club requires you to have, 15 to 25 members that are relatively active
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make it run well and easily.
yeah.
And when you only have 10 people, it's really tough to do, and you can see the group struggle. And the fact that they're trying is I mean, it's very shows their devotion to trying to develop, and that's
Yeah,
important.
I know as a club, I don't think we've ever really struggled. Everything came always pretty easy.
Yeah, whoever set the tone 30 years ago when that club started did a good job.
Yeah, that would be so interesting just from a leadership standpoint to see how was that club set up. And then you've got guys like Clement that's been around for like ever. That's a
He said
very
he's 34 years in Toastmasters, so
34 years. It's a very
that's older than several of our members actually.
and yeah, and he doesn't age actually, which is funny. I don't know if you know this or not, but Clement married us, like Shelly and I.
No, I
Um,
didn't know that.
like
Yeah.
whatever it was, 18, 19 years ago or something like that. And I swear he looks exactly the same now as he does then. I think he might be an alien and he might be like 1,000 years old. I don't know exactly. So, but he doesn't age, does he? He's the same as he does. I mean, how old is he? I think he's like 80 or something, or I mean,
He's 78, 79.
78, 79, right around there.
Yeah, somewhere
Gets
around
up
there.
at
Yeah.
like 2 o'clock in the morning, does his treadmill for it. He's just very
Well,
disciplined.
that club when I joined had a lot of people that were up there in age and they were still very active.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just crazy. And you remember Dee? I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know how
D.
old she is. She's like, what is he, 110 or something like that?
No, she's like 93, 94.
But she still runs her bill. Wasn't she still running her business, making a ton of
I think
money?
she still runs her business. Yeah, she wanted to hand it off to her kids, but they didn't want it, so she still runs it.
Who knows how much money she's making? Probably a ton, because insurance is awesome. So you just get you just build and build and build. So she's probably just ah, crazy, making a ton of money. Um, okay, so anyways, with all that said and done, I got a new cat. I don't know if you've seen my new cat. He was running around Toastmasters a little bit.
I saw him on there. Did you want me to finish the original topic though? We were talking about. I was talking to Andrew from the club.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure, yeah,
So we were talking on the phone. We were doing some planning for a holiday party, but he brought up since he's a singer. He sings, I guess, at various Jewish rituals. He's Jewish, so he
in the
goes
church,
to.
he's like a cantor, right? I believe.
He's a cantor, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we were talking about singing, and he had watched a video that was comparing Ariana Grande and Kristen Chenoweth in their role on Wicked and how they sang.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about something I'd watched on YouTube recently that was talking about Judy Garland and how she sang in 1939, Somewhere Over the Rainbow,
Oh yeah.
and how it sounded today in 2024, the way we would record it on the software that exists today.
Yeah.
He was doing a comparison of, I guess, the imperfections of the way it was before
Yeah.
and how the imperfections actually made it sound better. The problem today is they're showing pitch, and in the software we use today, people have perfect pitch. It corrects for the way you sing.
Correct.
So it was showing like how the pitch just went up to whatever pitch that someone was singing, and it stayed flat. So there was no variation. Whereas when you would watch a recording of Judy Garland sing she would hit the pitch, and there would be a little bit of variation.
Yeah.
But that actually adds authenticity
Yeah.
to the sound,
Yeah.
and that made me actually wonder if that is at the core why we don't like change, why we don't like, AI is changing everything, and other technology changes things. It's we feel it somehow attacks and devalues the original whatever it was that caused it. So whatever it came originally, technology changes it and makes it so everyone can do it. What the example I had was, remember what, 15, 20 years ago, if you knew how to program HTML, you made a lot of money
Yeah. Right. Sure.
making websites. And then now every software out there can do it for you. I mean,
Yeah.
you buy a domain name and they'll make the website for you.
Yeah.
So in essence, that skill got devalued. That ability got devalued.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I was wondering, is that why we don't like, people in general don't like change, is because it attacks the value of the things we already have inside ourselves, our principles, our beliefs, our values, whatever. Suddenly we feel attacked, and therefore that's why we don't like change.
Yeah, yeah, of course, actually. Yeah, because it's changed. That means you got to change, and people don't want to change because it's scary and all sorts of things. Actually, it's interesting. I watch this guy, Andrew Bustamante. He's like a CIA guy or whatever.
Hmm.
Like, oh my
Yep.
gosh, I wanted to do one of his classes so bad. I can't remember what it's called, like Ghost Tactics. It was called like they call it Crash and Bang, where you basically, figure out how to drive cars. I think we talked about it last time and shoot guns. I mean, it sounds like so fun. It was like a $5,000 buy-in for like a weekend. And I'm like, I've always wanted to know how to do that. Now that dude's up to like $9,000 now, actually. So apparently he's just raising his prices like crazy. And
Well,
he's open, he talks about it. He's like, just because I can, so
the more you charge for something, the more it's perceived value.
yeah, 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 exactly. The more you pay attention.
That was one of the things that Martha Stewart learned a long time ago when she was selling, I think, homemade pies or something like that. She was
Yeah,
selling them
well,
for $5 or $10 and no one would buy them, but as soon as she raised it to $20 or whatever the cost was, everyone was buying them.
of course. That's because I don't want to go down this route, but I just mentioned it briefly. That's the key of marketing and pricing is, man, pricing is like voodoo black magic, actually. It's not based on, it's like, it's based on utility up to a certain point, but then once you get past that, then it's just basically irrelevant at that point.
But there's also options, right? It's like when you give someone three options and you have the expensive one, the cheap one, and then the middle one, you price it a little closer to the expensive side. That's the one people tend to buy.
Yeah, you always present the highest price first because it's called, you set an anchor, and then they're like, oh my God. Like if you want money for a charity or something, go ask somebody, like, could you donate $1,000? And they'll be like, you're insane. Okay, then how about 100? They're like, okay, I'll do 100, just because it seems so cheap. It's so easy to hack our brains. We're so hackable.
Hmm.
And it's funny, like even the more you know these techniques, and I understand them pretty good because I've studied them. Even though the other dude's doing it to me, It's like, and I know exactly what he's doing, I still fall for it every single time. It's like, it's weird how it works.
Trying to think if do I fall for it?
Oh, of course you do.
Hmm, sometimes maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. It's best to admit it. And it's okay to admit it. It's better.
Well, no,
Because
I'm just trying to think how my mind works when I'm presented. I don't like spending money in general. So my first thought is I'm not going to buy anything,
yeah,
let alone your cheapest option. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, then you may not be my customer then, but there's plenty of people who will spend money. It's not a problem. And it always meets some sort of emotional need for them when they buy something, whether you buy a new computer, a new this, or it's just there's just something that works for them in their mind. I don't know what it is.
I listened to a guy yesterday or the day before who was attacking the idea that marketing sells to emotion.
Oh,
He,
attack. Oh, no, for
he was
God's sake. That's
no, no, no,
that's
no.
all it
He was
is.
saying that no, that thinking is totally wrong, even though that's what
Okay.
everyone says.
Yeah.
And then he actually argued that in actuality, it's all rational. It's still controlled. You're still controlling the environment someone's thinking in, but they're actually and I forgot the terminology he used, but he basically said when you buy the image of something, you're being rational about it. So when you're buying the cool car to appear more masculine or rich
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever the image is, you're buying the image because that everyone else knows that image and you're basically selling them your image.
Of
So he
course.
says it's actually a rational thought, not an emotional thought like, oh, I need to look cool, so I'm going to buy that car. It's like, I need to appear cool to everyone else. So rationally, this is a tool I can get that lets me look cool. It was an interesting argument to make, and he tried to show that all the emotional buying is actually part of this thinking. So it was an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. People want to spend things, whatever. It's like, what I've found is a lot of people will like you'll identify this thing or this idea or concept, and then people give it different names and spin it around and all sorts of stuff. I mean, that's actually good marketing because you want to definitely rename something and make it your own name to think you created it, even though it's been around for thousands of years.
Hmm.
So it's all emotional. That we're emotional creatures. I mean, we do things emotionally, and this is one of the things this Andrew Bustamante was talking about, which is so interesting, is that he was talking about you got to help me pronounce it, ideology, the mind,
Ideology? Yeah.
yeah, ideology. I can't even say that. And he says that will drive almost everybody. You can somehow figure it out how to get somebody to do almost anything if you spin it in the right way. And there's like four techniques that you can use, and that's probably one of the strongest and most powerful ones, which is really interesting.
Well, I understand, I guess, that the ideology is kind of the box around the way you think.
Yeah.
So if you can make it work that way, um, yeah, yeah, sure, I guess ideology is one of the things. The
Yeah.
principles, because it's your principles, it's your values, it's your belief structure. All that fits in your ideology,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you're left or right, conservative or liberal, your ideology is gonna have certain values in there, and what appeals to one side is not going to appeal to the other side.
No, no, and I wonder like that. And I honestly think in some cases, if you do like Democrats, Republicans, especially if you move them apart from the center more and more, I think it has something to do with their DNA, their makeup. It's like I don't think that you could rationally change something.
I I think when you're talking about the fringe characteristics or criteria that make up one side or the other,
Yeah.
that may be true, but I also happen to think that a lot of the stuff is in the middle. That the
Yeah,
middle
most
part
of them.
that doesn't get any attention.
Yeah, right.
Where it's like my beliefs are pretty much in the middle for most of what there is, and
Well, it
so
depends on who's viewing it. Like if you depending on the right person, that you might be radically left or radically right.
yeah. Well, if you're far left or far right, then I'm far opposite of whatever you are,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty much in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting because that is just, it's so interesting how to get people to move things. It's like there was a series on Netflix I was watching. It's like how to start a cult, and it's so fascinating. Just how people. It's amazing how they move around. I'm having trouble articulating with words. I suppose as we do this more and more, I'll get better turning ideas into words.
There are values though that I think are more universal, either in people or maybe just societies, but you know, valuing kids and protecting kids, valuing pets, maybe in our society. Because I used to think you can always make money. You can always make more money targeting parents for their kids, pet owners for their pets.
Yeah.
I mean, all these things because people are willing to spend more money than they would for like you'll spend a certain amount of money for the average person, but if it's a kid, if it's your kid, that percentage goes up.
Well,
It's
I
even
know I've talked to dads, and they didn't. They're like, yeah, my wife's pregnant or whatever like that. And then as soon as they hold the baby, I talked to them about it, and they're like, I don't know what happened. I didn't even realize how overwhelming this experience was. And then I just realized, like, in that second, that I would like die for this kid. Just it was just like instantly, it was overwhelming. They didn't expect it, they couldn't control it. It's like literally their expression was like an alien just invaded my brain. And
but
it's like, yeah, that's
because of that,
evolution.
I mean, because of that, that means that that is a market that you could sell to, regardless of their ideology.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So the general rule on marketing, if there's any possible way to get a baby or a dog in your ad or something like that, that's a sure thing. Get it in there. Even if it's completely unrelated, people don't even care. It's like, have you ever seen Shark Tank before? A few
Mhm.
episodes of it? Well, there's a few episodes where they bring a dog on. And all I know is the dog just completely steals the show. It's like they even forget what they're doing. They're out of their mind. I just want to see the dog. I want to see the dog. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't matter, actually. They're obsessed with this freaking dog, for a few minutes. And the producer's like, okay, guys, come on, come on, come on. Let's get back to the show. And it's fascinating. It's like I think we'd all be dead though, because humans are so weak. After a lot of animals, they just have a few minutes. But as a human, like my God, after 18 years, we're still not sure. And and it's like if it wasn't for those crazy drugs going through the mom's mind, I mean, she is just drugged out of her mind, with a baby. Have you seen women like you bring a baby in, they just freak out, actually. They're like, let me see the baby, let me see the baby. I want to see the baby.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, I obviously it's the survival mechanism of the species is that we automatically look at the babies and we even look at baby animals and we feel
Oh
something.
my gosh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's all of a sudden you'll like do anything at that point.
but
So
then you see, I mean, you'll see a story about I don't know a cat that takes care of puppies or a dog that takes care or a goat that takes care of puppies or whatever it is, right?
yeah.
And you wonder, well, that's interesting, but I think again, it's wiring into just life, maybe that yeah, when it comes
Yeah.
to life that we're wired
It's
to protect and take care of.
it's wired in. I'm kind of looping this back around to the emotional side of thing. It's wired in. We can't control it. I mean, I don't want to say we can't control it. You can control, but it's very difficult to control that actually, if you even want to.
Well,
And
then,
and that's what marketing does. It taps into some of those things where
but
people,
people aren't having kids anymore, so is that if people don't have kids, do they not have the feeling?
well,
In
people are
which
still,
case, are we breeding? Are we breeding that nurturing instinct out of humanity by the sheer number of people that don't have kids anymore?
well, Chris, people are still having kids. I mean,
Well, demographically, it depends on the country.
well, you said that there people aren't having any kids anymore.
Well, no, if you look at the demographics by country, the amount of kids that are being had is going down in all the developed countries.
Well, okay, that's fine, but you said any, which means zero, right?
Yeah, so any in this term means just a generic word I was using. So people
Okay.
are having fewer kids
Okay, there,
than
I'll buy that. Fewer kids. There we go. Yeah.
right? And you look at the replenishment rate is what 2.1.
I don't
Every
know.
couple should have
I don't know.
2.1 kids to maintain the population of a country.
Okay, yeah, yeah, there's some number, right,
right?
exactly.
And it's called something fertility rate.
Yeah,
I did a dive into this in ChatGPT at one point, and I said, list all the countries that have that don't have a or are below
yeah,
replenisher,
right.
sorry, and that was most of the developed world.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Right?
and I
Very
don't
few
know
countries
why
have.
that is. I'm not quite sure. I don't.
Education means you tend to have more professional jobs, sit-down jobs, intellectual jobs, and intellect takes time and effort, and education takes time and effort, and that takes time away from having families.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad. That's sort of interesting. I don't know. I listened to Jordan Peterson. I don't know if he knows anything, but he says I think the world's population is probably going to peak at around 9 billion, and then it's going to sort of start to come down at some point. So,
Some people say it's already peaked. It's hard
oh,
to say,
interesting. Yeah,
But you
yeah,
have countries that have, 4 or 5 kids is still the norm.
yeah. That's crazy. But I wonder if they don't have birth control. Do they? Maybe they don't even understand the connection. I'm not sure actually. I don't.
And quite often there are countries that don't have as much money, they don't have as much education, like you said. There might still be a strong religious element, which tends to have higher birth rates. So
Yeah, that is fascinating. And is that good or bad? It's interesting. I guess it depends on how you like. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, these are some really deep, complex topics actually, and I don't really understand. I don't understand. We got to start discussing all these sort of things overall. But okay, but listen, I don't put that on hold if you're okay with it. I'll give you a chance to
sure.
run with it if you want, actually. But what I do want to talk about today is just I want to go back. I've been thinking about mental tools to help you make better decisions because yeah, let me be careful when I say this because now I'm not even sure if this is right anymore. Because my first dive, but what I first wanted to say was, well, clearly in decision making, if you can reduce emotion and increase logical thinking, that will yield a better decision, right? But then how do you define better decision? And is that even true, that statement?
So yeah, better decision is an interesting aspect because I still, in core to my belief, is that given all the information available, you can figure out the best solution, right? The problem with that thinking is it removes the emotion, or maybe not the problem, but an aspect of that thinking is it removes the emotion because the emotional element usually is making a decision not based on rationality and not based on analysis and that.
Yeah, and that's
But
definitely a part of it. You have to do
but
that, but you
but so
can't do it exclusively.
the thing I'm bringing up is I was listening again to the book The 48 Laws of Power by Robert.
Oh, yeah, Robert Greene, I think, right?
And I think the first lesson in there, the first rule is never outshine the master,
No, you don't want to do that. Yeah, right.
right? So I'm going through this going, my belief contradicts that. Because if the boss is emotional or has certain beliefs and values that are going to impact their thinking,
Yeah,
then my best solution for a situation is not the best solution if I'm subject to a boss who's involved.
yeah,
And and so basically that means that I my best solution is not the solution that is divorced from feelings and emotions. It's the one that incorporates the boss's feelings and emotions.
of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, you're there to
And
serve the boss.
that's tough for me to accept because from a logical, more scientific standpoint, that should not be part of the best solution.
Well, I mean, typically in that case, then usually what happens is you go off on your own at some point, you know. Are you kill your master and take over, one of the two. I mean, that's more old school style, but like in the
But
Jedi, the
but
dark side.
I realize this is probably one of the most difficult things that makes me harder to be indispensable as a person
Yeah.
because I never assume I'm indispensable because the skills that I bring others should be able to
Oh
bring,
yeah, nobody's in. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. The world
And
goes
and
on.
and the but if you really want to make yourself indispensable, you need to basically incorporate the boss's thinking into the way it works. And the
Yes.
problem with that is the boss's thinking is not always logical. The boss's thinking is not always factually based or analysis based, which then means that you've got to have. And you may think this is obvious, but to me, it's like I get it. I get it being obvious, but it just to me goes against the core idea that we can use logic to find the best answer. This maybe goes more to your point that the logic is fine, but feelings have to be part of it.
Yeah, so a couple different thoughts. Oh, now you're making me think. I mean, I'm still kind of clinging on to my assumption that truth, logic is the truth. What am I trying to say? Logic is the foundation or structure on which truth is built. And so, with that particular case, you could use logic and certain tools to quickly determine how true something is. And I'd like to break away from is it true or not true? I'd like to put it in some kind of a spectrum, you know?
Again, I don't like using the word truth. I prefer using fact. It's factual.
What does factual mean? What does the truth
It
mean?
means there is some form of measurable aspect to a piece of information or a condition or a factor that you and I can agree on.
Mhm.
Truth is an interpretation of that.
I will I will give you the fact I think this is a good definition. It's true if we agree on it, whatever it is, whether it's logic, emotion, whatever. As long as a group of people agree, that's the truth.
I don't know that I would accept that because if we can all agree on the same facts, we may not all come to the same conclusion from those facts, and therefore we don't agree on the truth. We can all agree that the sun is shining outside right now, but I think that the sun is revolving around the earth, and you think that the earth is revolving around the sun. Neither of those is true. One of those is true by the science definition.
The earth moves around the sun.
No, what
But
if
the
I say
sun
that's not true?
moves. What's
No,
that?
no, I say this: the sun moves around the earth.
The sun moves around the
And if the fact is that the sun is out, that doesn't really teach us anything. We say, well, we got night and day. Yeah, night and day. You see, when the sun goes around the earth, yeah, we have night and day. And you're going, no, 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 the sun or the earth is spinning around. It's facing and not facing. And I'm like, those are two different viewpoints, which is
Ah,
true. You see? Then you have to bring in the fact. Well, the fact of the matter is we have seasons, and you start talking about this, and you start talking about, pictures from satellite, whatever it is that you're using to build your thinking.
yeah.
So the truth of the matter would be that we can show from the facts that we can gather that the most likely scenario is that the Earth is orbiting the sun and it's rotating as it does it, giving us a night and day. But if I don't agree with all the facts and I just selectively nitpick those facts, or we don't have all the facts, then we can come up with different viewpoints.
Oh, we definitely do. I mean, there's this whole flat earther movement that's kind of gaining steam and whatever. And it's fascinating, actually. And it's like, my question is why? And I watched a bunch of videos on this, and I'm like, why do you need to believe that? Because they have a need to believe that. Because, and here I heard one guy mention it, said, because if we don't believe that the earth is the center of everything, then we're not important. And that's why they had to, they could not believe it because of that, because now they believe they're not important. I mean, that's a fascinating sort of thing, you know?
When you talk about self-awareness, what does that characterize to you?
I don't even know.
The reason why I say that is because if you're self-centered,
Which I totally am, yeah.
well, no, like you said, like self-centered means that not only am I the center of my universe, that the Earth is the center of the universe, and therefore I'm the center of the Earth, and or whatever however you want to take that. Is that I think when we say self-awareness, we expect someone to contradict that viewpoint, saying, I'm not the center of the universe. There are things beyond me, and kind of an acceptance of me being a smaller part in a bigger thing. And so that's when we say self-awareness, that's what we mean by someone being self-aware. Also being aware of their own emotions and feelings and all the other it's like understanding the limitations of you and the world around you is self-awareness is what
Yeah,
we mean.
that's always, yeah, I think
And
there's
the
probably more
contradiction to
to it.
that is self-centered. And
Yeah.
I think self-centered is the easiest thing because I don't have to then question myself anything about the world. I don't question myself, I don't question the world, I don't question whatever. I just accept that what I know is everything and I don't have to worry about anything else.
And in the grand scheme of things, then you're happy, you're content. And is there really a problem with that?
So personally, yes, there's a problem with that. But in the bigger picture question is there a problem with people deluding themselves and thinking that they're the center of the universe? Uh, on behalf of humanity, I would say yes. On behalf of you and the kind of the short term cultural idea, maybe not. Do you ever watch the old TV show Michael J. Fox had was Family Ties years ago?
A little bit, very little,
I
actually.
just I remember a quote that he said. He goes, "I am the center of your universe." He was saying to his sister. He goes,
Yeah.
"I am the center of your universe." He's basically she was making a decision that wasn't based upon what he felt
Yeah,
that was
right,
going to
right.
impact him, and he was
Yeah.
like, "No, you should be making decisions based upon my needs." So, and it was it was one of the funniest things. I just remember that quote. I am the center of your universe,
Yeah.
and I think a
Because,
lot of people think that.
well, and I think that too, because, in my quest for God, I have no idea if it's true or not.
Hmm.
But I've decided, Jordan Peterson mentions he really helped me. He says, I'm acting as if it's true. And I think that makes sense because for me, that's kind of like the best answer for me. It makes sense.
But so I understand the idea, right? He goes, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to act as if God exists.
Yeah.
But why? What's the value proposition of acting like God exists? And I think he goes into that a bit, right?
What's the value proposition for me?
I
Is
mean,
it
it's actually harder on you because you're going to be applying ethic and moral values to things and your decisions and the way you act. It's going to affect how you treat people. You can't just default treat people like you want. You're actually going to treat them based upon some kind of a code or guide
a
that you've created,
higher
right?
power, right?
So
Yeah.
that's actually more effort and more work for you as an individual. So, what is the value proposition of acting such that God exists?
Well, for me, because I feel like that's my predestined purpose. It's like this is my purpose. And so I feel like if I do that, that's the happiest I could possibly be because I'm serving my function. And I think that's kind of common.
That doesn't sound to me like you're that you're holding back deciding whether you believe God exists. It sounds like you're actually believing that God exists.
What's
It's
the,
not like it's not you're saying, I can't be sure, but I think that there's value in living a life as if God exists, and therefore, doing the right thing and whatever all the other aspects that go with that are
yeah,
valuable. Because if you're talking about purpose and you're talking about your purpose comes from God,
yeah, from the creator.
and that's valuable to you because
Because I know why I'm here. It's like humans throughout history have always just going like, why am I here? What am I supposed to do?
why
What
can't
is
you
the
just
point?
why can't you just say that the purpose is the purpose, whether it's from God or not?
Hang on, I
Can't
don't
you just
understand.
decide your purpose? This is the other thing, right? So can't you just decide your purpose? What is your purpose in life? And everyone goes through some kind of a big effort to figure that out. And why don't you just say X is my purpose? And then 3 years from now, when life has changed and you've had some hard times, you go, you know what? No, Y is now my purpose.
Mhm. It's like hardwired in. I can't, but I'll give that some thought. I'll see if I can sort of I'll see if I
Because
can get some words to it that would make sense, you know?
the problem I've had is, and it's this is something that I've been meaning to, I've been trying to work on for years. What are my values? What are my beliefs? What are the principles that I have? And they're all different levels, right? I mean,
Yeah,
a
sure.
principle, a value, a belief, they're all different. And then what is my purpose?
Yeah.
And then the thing is, I was going down the rabbit hole of saying, okay, these are the beliefs I have. These, the values I have. I believe that people are generally good people, right?
Yeah.
I believe that education is one of the best ways to raise the standard lifestyle of someone, to
Oh
give
my
them knowledge,
gosh.
power,
Certainly.
and all these things, right? These are things
Yeah.
that I believe,
Yeah.
or and so there are principles tied to that. But then, how does that all tie to a purpose? And it doesn't. Purpose is something different, right? These are all your beliefs, your values, your principles are all things that are constraints on how you act to achieve purpose. But your purpose isn't necessarily tied specifically to those things. Like, just because I value education doesn't mean my purpose is to go out and educate everyone,
Yeah, right,
right?
right. It could be, but it could not be, right?
Yeah. So this is the hard part about had in my mind. I'd always tied your purpose should come out when you're talking about your principles, your values, and your beliefs. But I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that because I see people, I've heard stories, I've seen people that have said this is their values, this is their beliefs, and they're pretty darn, what do you call it? They're pretty darn passionate about that. And I think they believe that. But then I'll see them act differently. I'm like, wait, that's not consistent. So maybe that's actually not your purpose, you know?
Sorry, I'm getting a scam phone call. Let me turn that off.
I love those, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, because I think that at the end of the day, you'll hear someone say, "This is my purpose," and then you see what their job is or what they do, and you go, "I don't see the connection there."
yeah, yeah, exactly. I see that. In fact, I see that most of the time, right?
And yet, if someone may, if you sit down and talk to them, who's actually taken the effort to do this, could come out and say, "No, no, no. These are the things that I do that achieve this purpose, and this is how." And maybe they thought through how that happens. How does being a used car salesman help me empower people to take financial control of their life? That seems totally different.
I
But
mean, it
maybe
could link up,
maybe
yeah,
there's
maybe.
something, maybe there's a path in there that makes sense to do that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
it could
that's
be something like, well, in the process of selling them a car, I teach them about A, B, and C. Or
yeah.
it could be something along the lines of the money I make selling cars, I then take that money and then give it to charity. I mean, there's a
Could be,
variety of ways that someone could figure out a way to have a purpose. Yeah,
could
ideally, your purpose and your actions are aligned in
yeah,
in an efficient way, in an effective way.
yeah, well, hopefully it gets more and more efficient as effective as time goes on, as you learn different skills, actually. You get better at your craft, actually.
Hmm.
But still, even if you're moving in that direction, even if you're ineffective and inefficient, that's just called growth. You start to learn how to get a little bit better. You know, if I can cycle back to Toastmasters, I think we both agree that if we can communicate effectively, right, both with facts and logic and emotion, wrapped up in a really good story, actually, we can radically influence people. I mean, there's books that have come out that have radically influenced people, you know, crazy. It
Hmm.
almost in a scary way, the Bible being one of them. I mean, how many people got killed because, you didn't believe what I want you to believe. So instead of, if I can't convert you, I'm going to kill you, right? I mean, okay, that's a
You want
little,
to talk about the power of storytelling? That's the Bible. It's all stories. It's all stories.
it's all stories. Yeah. And so how do I view that as true? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I might be totally deluding myself. Um, Very likely, actually. But I think it requires a little bit of faith, actually.
Yeah, and but that's the interesting thing, right? I think science and faith are opposed to each other as a general viewpoint. I mean, I've known several scientists who have been very religious, and what the general way they do it is they discount as strictly stories the parts that don't fit into science.
Oh, yeah, that's the whole God's in the gap sort of. idea.
It's like my biology teacher. He says he believed in the Garden of Eden and God and all that. He goes, but he didn't think the Garden of Eden was really Adam and Eve in a Garden of Eden. He thought of it as like the primordial soup of evolution growing into, and that's your Garden of Eden. And so it's a story
Oh,
to explain how creation occurred. But it was not necessarily about. He didn't necessarily believe word for word the story as it was written.
yeah, that's always the conversation. Like some of it's literally, some of it's actual facts. It's like, how do you know which one? Like, I don't know if you read Revelation or not. It's kind of you may want to read that. It is a whole trip actually. But it talks about all these different beings and all this weird stuff and everything. And so then the question always is, well, is that like actually how it works, or are these just literary constructs and just pictures to express ideas? And who knows, right? I mean, who knows? It's who knows. It's interesting because I've been really struggling with this idea of free will and predestination. And I think part of the thing that's been messing me up and messing a lot of people is you assume that it's all this or all that. And so I think if you start applying the question, how much free will do we have versus, how much is set in stone and how much ability do we have to change things from a marketing standpoint, I say we have a little free will, but not very much. Because if you just go back and I watch these shows, they're kind of cool on YouTube that shows like the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and how people did and what they did. It's like, oh my gosh, culture just drove them around like crazy. And everybody had the same crap in the 70s. Everybody had the same crap in the 80s, and everybody's got the same crap now, actually. And it wasn't based on that's what they really wanted. It was based upon the fact that this is what culture said you have to have. And in order to adapt and be part of the group, I guess I got to get this same crap that everybody else has, actually. And fascinating.
Well, it takes effort to be an individual.
Well, and there's a lot of risk to it too, because you
It
moved
takes
out.
confidence. It takes I don't think self-awareness is the right term here, but it takes an understanding of who you are and what you value. And I guess there is a self-awareness aspect, understanding when something is being driven by an external source like marketing and
Yeah.
culture versus an internal source, right? Um, like the whole minimalist mindset of, I need to simplify everything in my life. I need to get rid of this and that. It's like a lot of the stuff that we put into our bodies and into our houses and into our minds is fed to us,
Yes.
um, because it's being driven by money or by a desire to convince people or educate people or whatever the desire is
Yeah. Right.
involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. People buy into it hook, line, and sinker. So the essence of marketing is if I'm selling to women, I'm going to sell you some sort of cream, some crap, something actually, because I need you to hook up in your brain that if you buy my shit, you're going to look like her. And it is so not true. But people buy it hook, line, and sinker, actually.
So, and okay, so this goes back to the other thing. So, is that emotion you're selling on, or is that someone logically thinking, "Oh, this is going to make me like that person"?
That's emotional because she's like, if I look like that, now I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that, I'm
So
going
the,
to get
the
all
emotion is, I want to be that person. I
that.
want I want to get the benefits of being that person or being
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
that's better. It's like I
right?
don't want to be that person, but I want
But
to get what she
so
has.
I'm gonna make the logical decision to buy this stuff that's not gonna work to become that. So it's an interesting argument to make. Is we're actually using you're building an image that is illogical to get a logical decision to get an illogical result.
See, I don't think it's logic. If we go back to my framework, that logic is the framework of truth, because we know a 50-year-old woman with like wrinkles under her eyes is not going to look like a 23-year-old supermodel. That ain't gonna happen, right? I mean,
No, but
no
your
way.
mind knows that a 23-year-old supermodel has a lot more opportunities, maybe making more money, have a hotter boyfriend, whatever, all of those things. That's logical. We know that's the way the world works, right? So there's a logical understanding that that's the way the world works. There's an emotional desire to be that way. And then as a marketer, I'm saying this thing that I'm selling is going to get you there. That's the unbelievable part, right? But logically, if it did work, if it actually did make you turn into a 23-year-old supermodel, then it would be logical to buy the product because it would give you that result.
If yeah, but good luck, maybe it gets you a little bit of the way there, but
But so the idea was, you know, advertising sells you on a whole bunch of things, right? So the idea, like Camel cigarettes used to say more doctors smoke Camel than anything else, right? There
lovely.
there there's the element of information here. If you get this, you know, it will it'll have that result.
Yeah,
But then there's also the element of trying to tie it to an image, and the
yeah,
image is where you tie it to the emotion.
yeah, yeah. The image is tied to the emotion. Yeah,
So I'm
um,
giving you a logical thing to buy to build an image or to project an image,
yeah,
and then you're going to emotionally buy because you want that image.
because you want the result. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So if I decide, you know what, I'm going to bring cases of tequila to a party,
Yeah,
the image I'm presenting is I want us all to get drunk.
yeah, and everybody typically is like, yeah,
Yeah. Whereas if I'm
love
like
you.
bringing high-end wine to a party, it's a different image I'm projecting,
It's a different thing. Yeah, yeah, very different. Yeah,
right? And so what I buy will be based upon which image I'm trying to project.
what image you're trying to predict? Yes,
Now the reason is why I want that image, that might be an emotional decision.
I think most definitely it is. It's so funny. It's like I need to write this out on a blackboard or a whiteboard because now I'm getting myself confused. But in when you sell, you got to combine all of those things together. You've got to sell whatever truth you have, and then we'll go into the section about how this is scientifically developed by one of the smartest scientists in Sweden and has been studying this for 22 years, and he found this enzyme in a rat that he knows how to duplicate it, and it, it's gonna do whatever, right? It's gonna make your wrinkles go away. And then you show before and after photos, so you get proof. You get a lot of people saying, "Oh my God, this is." You show contrast. You show this was before XYZ cream, and this is after XYZ cream, and and that's what you do. That's the sales pitch. That's the presentation, actually.
Well, so I was thinking when you brought this up earlier, conspiracy theories.
I love
I,
conspiracy
I
theories
love conspiracy theories too. Why? Why do we love conspiracy
because it's
theories?
fun, because it's entertaining.
But what is it supplying to us? Why is it fun and why is it entertaining?
Because I
It's
get
like,
bored just with the standard stuff. I want something new.
but I think what happens is there are a number of usually a conspiracy theory takes a bunch of different facts and
Yeah.
builds a story around those facts that is usually faulty somewhere,
Oh, of course.
right?
Yes.
I mean, that's how a conspiracy theory works. And yet sometimes in the world we live in, some of that stuff ends up being true, and then you're like, see, the conspiracy theory was right. But I'm thinking that there is an element of logic in a conspiracy theory that you're appealing to. You're appealing to look at these five events that occurred, these five things that happened. Because it doesn't make sense to say that it was just sheer chance or that the person made a mistake five times or, all those types of things. And so you end up building, well, obviously then it was done intentionally. So these five actions were intentional. And if it's intentional, then there's someone who's intentionally doing it. That means that someone's in control. And I mean, you start building a whole storyline that has facts in it
Yeah.
that ties those facts together in a
Yeah.
way that is able to gloss over the faults in that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. The best lies have a lot of truth in them.
So I think the conspiracy theory adds value and gets people to believe because there are facts to it, because there is enough logic to it that holds together just enough, or maybe a lot more than just enough,
A lot
to be
more.
able to get someone to believe that.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
the old saying? Never was it never assume that someone is intentionally doing something wrong when never attribute to evil intent what could be done by accident or by what's an inability and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Almost never. I think most people have good intents. Although marketers, we lie. We want to sell stuff so we can make money, right? And it's a horrible business to be in, actually. Just like politicians.
No, never attribute to malice that which can be attributed to incompetence.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So generally when something bad happens and people are blaming the government, in my mind it's probably from incompetence than it is from intent. Intent is
Well,
a lot harder than incompetence. Intent takes effort. Intent is actually a plan that someone puts together and then has to implement
yeah.
versus just people screwing up.
Yeah, yeah. From what I understand, talking to people who've dealt with politicians, they're like, these guys are not that smart, actually.
The average person is not that smart.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of great attorneys and lawyers. But yeah, but people can be, and I get swayed all the time by it. That's why I would like to, in future sessions, maybe we could start flushing out some tools, simple tools that can help people evaluate how true something is.
Well, so to the speech you did today, asking you said was it asking better questions?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe just make up some questions. What are some generic questions, a list of 3 or 4 questions that you should go through anytime a big idea comes up,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Can the same results be attributed to something else,
Yeah,
right? So it's like, oh, the this person did a bad thing, the government did a bad thing, whatever, right? This company is evil. It's like, well, could it be attributed to something else? Well, think about it for a moment. And in the beginning, this might be hard because it requires you to have a pretty broad level of knowledge to be able to say,
yeah,
this could be this, or this, it could have been caused by this, it could have been caused by that. But as you begin to ask that question and then do a follow up, well, how can I check?
yeah, and that's. I swear, I think I just at my core, I believe I'm right. I think I'm right, anyways. Is that these logical tools can attack falsehoods at some point. You can actually, if you apply enough tests to something, you can sort of break it down and say, no, that part of it's nonsense. The other part's true, but that part is like
So,
nonsense.
a good way to do this is when you're watching the political campaign ads, the ones that
Yeah,
the attack ads, and they
yeah,
say this person did this and this person did that. Go online, search, this person, defunded supported
yeah,
defund the police, and then you type in that person's name and defund the police, and then see what comes up. Or this person attacked, women's rights or something. Say, okay, let's go see that, and then what you can see is usually somewhere in that, and you read through several links and find out what's going on. You'll usually come across one that gives you an explanation that makes logical sense. That
yeah,
goes, oh, okay, I see that. And then someone took that and spun it into one
yeah.
side of the story or a small part of the story and was able to, and so it's factually they're not incorrect. But because of the way they presented it, it
Yes.
gave you an image all one side versus
It's
another.
deceiving. Yeah. And I think, it's interesting. I think Joe Rogan does a good job of that. That's why everybody views him as moving from very left to very right. Because when you see him dig in, he's like, man, this just doesn't make any sense. This is like BS. And I know I saw an episode not too long ago, but really shifted him away from the liberal side to like the Trump side. Because I remember a couple of years ago, he was saying, I'm never having Trump on my show. I'm not giving that guy, this kind of platform. And this guy is horrible, right? And then as things start to move forward, and I think one guest asked him, like, what changed you? What flipped the switch inside of you? And he was showing something that Obama said about the January 6th stuff, that he was just bold-faced lying. And they go, when you actually watch the whole clip, it was completely taken out of context. And then Joe Rogan said at that point, like, I can't do that because he just absolutely bold-faced lied. And I just can't support that anymore. And most people won't go to that much work to do that.
So this when I watch the news, and I watch the news pretty much every night. I'll put on the local station and I'll watch it. And I get frustrated a lot with local news.
Well, of course, you should. Don't
It's
watch
and
it.
it's because it's poorly done. But then again, I watch national news and it's just as poorly done.
Probably done, yeah.
No one's trying to figure out facts and give me facts so I can make my own decision. They're
No.
trying to feed me a story that is more sensational because they want clicks, they want ad revenue, whatever it is. I mean, I
That's
think
just,
Dan Rather at one point he was really upset because the show producers kept trying to get him to basically give more spin on
yeah,
stories
yeah,
so that they could be more sensationalized.
yeah,
And the idea is like, I mean, we talked last time a little bit about the guy who killed the healthcare CEO. It's like the information I'm getting, you know, they were talking about they found a backpack, they found a water bottle, they found all this
yeah,
kind of stuff, right? And so they show a picture of a backpack, and I'm looking at that backpack, and my first thought was, does that look like the backpack he was wearing,
yeah.
right? Because now I'm questioning the pictures they're showing me. Are these the is it true? And I think it was, but they click through it so fast that it's like, are you trying to give me information to use to actually come to a valid thought in my head, or are you just trying to feed me the thought, which is what they're trying to do?
Of course. That's the model. It's like it's all nonsense. It's all propaganda because you got to understand that news stations, especially cable news, what we call legacy media now, their business is to make money. And so the model is you get your people riled up and you sell advertising. That's it. That's the model. And
Well,
every single one of them has an agenda.
but the model used to be there were only a few outlets for news of any kind of any media type, right? Newspaper, radio, whatever, and they had to appeal to the biggest audience possible. And the way to do that is to give information on both sides, pretty
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
and to avoid getting too far into the weeds of one side or the other, so that people could basically you were still in a position to be able to make your own decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then what happened is cable came out, and then you had your kind of Rush Limbaughs of the world and talk radio and all the other things that kind of came out, and they went one direction or another.
Yeah. Right. Of course.
Um, I mean, I don't know if you remember, MSNBC used to be Microsoft and NBC,
Yeah. Right.
and I thought it was a tech show, and then
Yeah.
it became what it is today. And I'm like, interesting. The availability of all the specialized channels that you can now
Yeah.
go online and find blogs about, I don't know, nail care, how to cut your nails or whatever,
Yeah.
or or for me, I can find stuff on the biome of my soil in my garden and
Yeah.
how to increase the fact that I can find entire volumes of information on that
Yeah.
is kind of what led to all these specialized news stations that have that no longer give us news, they give us opinion.
Opinion. And even not even opinion, it's the opinion of the top dog. That's why some people in Fox News got fired because you watch Tucker Carlson, it's like or Megyn Kelly. The reason I got fired because I was expressing opinions that wasn't in alignment with the corporate, standard.
But I think that's true of a lot of newsrooms where people are quitting because they see that the agenda is coming from an owner or it's coming from a particular group, right?
Yes.
And that's the one thing that I know that conservatives has been complaining about for years about the mainstream media, and
Yes.
I've kind of poo-pooed the idea that it's that bad.
Yeah.
Um, so years ago, I started listening to NPR years ago,
Yeah.
and I thought it was generally pretty good, right? They gave me a pretty fair breakdown of
Yeah.
facts,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and they might say some people think this or some people are saying
Yeah.
this,
Right.
but they kept it at a distance,
Just
and
fact. Yeah.
they had very little in the way of commercials.
Yeah. Because it's funded. Yeah. It's national.
Suddenly, these underwriters, which are
Yeah.
basically right, are everywhere, and now everything is like underwritten by this, it's underwritten by
Yeah.
that, and I'm like, so that's where the money came in to NPR,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a problem. I understand that everyone needs money to
Yeah.
operate, but the inability to separate the agenda of where the money's from and what you're producing is really tough.
It's very tough and see, it's so interesting because we're going to be going through the same thing. If we actually even get a measure of success and we actually start making money, right? And we start to get sponsors and they start paying us, we'll probably be having conversations outside of the camera like, Chris, we may just want to leave that topic off to the side because we don't want to mess up this $50,000 a month sponsorship that we're getting, and that would maybe not make them look very good, you know? And we'll have ethical dilemmas that we're going to have to sort through.
Well, so I told you last week I did a speech from that Paul Harvey
Yeah.
had done on a radio show. And in researching Paul Harvey, he has a famous quote. He says, "I am fiercely loyal to those willing to put their money where my mouth is."
Percent.
I mean, as long as you're honest about it, saying this is fully paid for, and I'm selling this, it is what it is.
It's like, you know, maybe we're all just whores, you know? Maybe we're assassins, we're this, we just give us enough
Yeah,
money and we'll do whatever you want us to do, you
like
know?
an oldest profession, right? After farming.
Have you heard that joke or something? It's like the guy met this woman at a bar or something like that, and she says, "Oh, I'm kind of a lady of the night," and he said, "How about $100?" And she got super offended, and he's like, "Well, we already kind of figured out. We're just talking about price at this point." And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just wonder if we're all like that, you know, except for the very few special ones.
Well, I mean, it's not always about money, right? Because the idea that everyone has their price is an old idea, and if someone gets the right stuff and it's not always money, then they're
Yeah,
the
well,
right.
yeah, and this is one we should go over. I should do a little research and maybe we could go over these. It's like there's four, I can't remember what it is, like four C's or something like that the CIA uses. One of them is coercion, which basically is unless you do this, we're going to
Yeah,
kill your wife or something like that.
they threaten you. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, and basically that's the least effective because you'll get it once, but you won't get it again, as opposed to ideology, which is like you can get that person over and over and over again. And it's like it was so interesting what he was saying because he's like the very thing that the CIA was doing to us,
Hmm.
that was teaching us to do, they were doing to us. And until you finally woke up and say, "Oh my God, we're being manipulated just like we're manipulating other people." And my thought is, dude, what do you expect? Do you think you're special in some way? You're just a tool, you know?
Hmm. Well, I mean, we're still wired the same way.
We're still wired the same way. I know, we're still wired. So I guess the real
Here
question
it's
is, who's your master?
coercion, control, confusion, and charisma.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Four C's. We got to learn those. We got to study those. We gotta do it so we can actually use them, but also teach how to defend against them. And sorry to do this, but I'm going to go back to jujitsu. Okay. But the thing is, in jujitsu, when you learn the technique, the attack, not only learning the attack, you're getting really good at defending against that attack because you can see it coming a mile away, you know? And you're like, oh, no, 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 no. I know where this is going. No, 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 thanks, actually. So maybe learning to attack is a good thing because you definitely learn the defense really well, you know?
When I used to ride a motorcycle to work a lot, I would split
Yeah.
lanes, and people would always say, "Oh gosh, that's so crazy. It's so dangerous. I'm afraid of that." I'm like, I don't think people realize being in between two cars, that's a separate lane that cars can't be in.
Well,
I feel safer between cars than behind a car or with a car behind me. Because the car behind me, they're not going to hit the brakes fast enough. I'm going to get scrunched between the car in front of me and the car behind me. In between cars, there's a possibility they could come together and I get squished,
yeah,
but I'm still alive probably.
maybe.
And the other thing is, being between cars, I can accelerate and decelerate without worry about another car because they're going to stay in their lanes, generally
Yeah, you
speaking.
can move in ways cars can't move.
So yeah, and then when I talk about having a more powerful motorcycle, people are like, "Oh, I wouldn't want a more powerful." I go, "No, you want a powerful motorcycle. You want to be able to accelerate away from danger as fast as possible. If I
Yeah,
get away from cars, even if I'm going 90 miles an hour, if there's no cars around me, the chances are I'm not going to go down. And
yeah,
going down is going to kill me. If there's a car around me, the chances of me going down go up. So
yeah, right.
it's counterintuitive in many ways when people think about that. Being between lanes is a totally different mindset. And I just realized that a lot of people don't realize that what they think is a problem is not the problem per se.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. That's why education is the most important thing, actually. I know that the Republic, I don't know if you read that. It's good reading. And it basically the summation of everything is that the answer to everything is just get smarter, more education.
So you're talking about the four C's in coercion, and one of the things that kind of got a bad rap when I was a kid in school was peer pressure,
Oh yeah.
right? And peer pressure was, oh, that's what they're going to make you smoke or do drugs or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I've never really heard anyone talk about the good side of peer pressure.
Yeah, well that's called iron sharpens iron, accountability groups and
It's called cultural norms.
cultural
Why we don't
norms.
kill each other? Why we? I mean, aside from laws that say we shouldn't kill each other,
Yeah.
there's also the idea that peer pressure is I'm gonna do unto others as you want done yourself is actually a valid way to keep control of people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where growing up, peer pressure was always said to be a bad thing, and I've always thought it's never. It's like anything else. It's a tool,
The
and
tool.
if it's aligned towards getting you to do bad behavior, then it's a bad thing. If it's
Yeah.
aligned towards getting you to act in a way that's predictable, that helps other people trust in you, then it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It depends on intent.
When you see the crazy guy running down the street hitting people randomly, he's not following the peer pressure cultural norms, and you don't trust him, and you feel unsafe.
You're feeling safe about him. Yeah. Feeling safe. We don't like that. We want to be safe.
I'm wondering how much of the stuff that we attribute to being bad or negative is just in how it plays out.
Oh, tons of it actually. The CIA guy is so fascinating because he's like, basically we're no different than a thief. It's like the only difference is we're just sanctioned and better trained. But he said the same stuff they do, we do, right? Because we're going into another country and we're trying to steal secrets. And I love how pure he is, right? Because he's like, we don't put value judgments on things. It's like the only thing we do is we're here to ensure the United States dominance in the world. And we'll lie, cheat, steal, kill anything to make sure we're top dog. And so there's very little is it the right thing to do or not? The right thing to do is define on are we going to win? And I kind of like that. It's a very pure way of thinking.
But okay, so how does that play into believing in God? Why is it
Well, I have no idea. I don't
why
know.
is focusing why is so my question is, can you reconcile that with the idea that you believe in God without somehow giving a superior viewpoint to, well, America's better?
Without giving a superior, yeah, because
Because I think if I'm saying I'm defending the American way of life and I'm willing to do anything to do so, I get
yeah.
that point. But that seems to then go against the idea of, value life, protect people, whatever things that you would normally associate with being believing in God and being religious.
Well, I don't know the way God protects people. God's killed a lot of people, actually. So if God views the people too evil, he kills them. It's kind of crazy. God's not super nice. If you go back
So
and read through the Old
the
Testament,
idea of treating people well, treating them nicely, all those types of things, where does nationality fit into that?
well, we're just part of a big tribe. Like for example, I don't
But
know
we're
if
also
you get
part
it.
of a bigger tribe, the bigger tribe, humanity.
Yeah, but we tend to group up though, actually. It's
So,
like,
but why does my tribe able to do more stuff against someone else and still be godly or still be?
oh, because God told us to do that, actually. Because
Yeah, the other people are going to say the same thing.
well, yeah, of course, yeah. Those are heathen, horrible people, Sodom and Gomorrah. These are just horrible sexual deviants, and they need to be killed. And so, and so you got to get out of there. And I can't remember the guy's name now, but he's like, okay, God, like let me see this negotiation with God. And it's like, okay, God, what if I can find just like 10 good people there? Would you spare them? God's like, okay, if you can find 10 good people, I'll spare. And then it goes down to, okay, God, if I can just find one good person, would you spare the whole thing? And it's so funny. It's like you see this, people negotiating with God, but God still killed them anyway. So he's like, okay, tell him to get out, then I'm going to kill him, and don't look back. Um, and I don't know. I mean, that is just, these
See,
questions, I don't know.
so
You're
I
boggling
can
my mind.
I can understand the mindset of being very simplistic and able to avoid all of the, tying yourself in knots over am I doing a good thing or a bad thing, because you're saying that the goal supersedes the ethical or moral aspect of my action. I
Mm.
understand that, but that seems to go against an idea of a higher value of ethics or morals.
Why would it be against it?
So it's okay to kill people that are not Americans or don't value American values or that threaten American values.
Oh, crap. We do it all the time. Yeah.
I'm not saying we do it all the time. I'm saying what we do and what we don't do. I'm saying, is it right? Is it does it fit in with a viewpoint of, Christianity? Or at least the modern viewpoint of Christianity. Christianity's changed
That's
over the years.
that's so interesting. And I would say
Because you've said several times that you're always impressed by how cleanly they think and how
I
focused.
do like it. I wish I could not have these dilemmas in my head.
Well, maybe you always need people in a society to be able to do that, for a society to function. And when we start talking about society, we're removing, again, this is actually one of the reasons why I think America is actually so great, is because we don't let religion get overly involved in so much of what we do. So the idea of separation of church and state, to me, always made sense, because so much of church in my mind is, so much of religion in my mind is emotionally based.
Oh my
And by
gosh, of
removing the
course.
emotional basis, you're able to focus on factual solutions that actually get stuff done. And I think a lot of the problem we're having right now in America is we've introduced emotions into so much of what we do, that that's what's getting in the way.
Because that's how you
Right?
manipulate
It's like
people. Yes.
human rights and individual rights and all that kind of stuff. They're important, but so much of those rights are about feelings and not about protecting
Yes.
life. Right?
Yes.
It's like if you have the right to live
Yeah.
a certain life, that to me makes sense. You have the right to feel a certain way is a little harder for me to accept, because to me then feelings are very subjective
Very
versus the
subjective.
right to live is objective.
Yeah. I don't have answers to any of this sort of stuff. It's
So,
very
and this is why the whole thing of, equality within the law of the United States is something we can be more objective about. But equality in pay, equality in treatment by government, well, treatment by government, I would argue that's something we could probably find a way to be objective about.
well, equality in
So
law has
much.
a lot to do with how good your attorney is.
That's not equality. That's outcome. The better your attorney, the better your outcome. The more money you spend, the better your outcome. But
Yeah.
the way the law views you is the same as anyone else.
Yeah.
The tools you have available are based upon how much money you've got. And if you've got a lot of money, then you are going to get a better outcome in the legal system. Now that
Guaranteed.
sucks. That sucks. But the idea is that no, the law still views you the same. It's just that you had 15 lawyers who knew better and knew loopholes and ways around things. And the
And
problem with that is that then the law is faulty in allowing those loopholes. But that's a different problem.
we'll choose the right judge and we'll do all sorts of stuff and knows the
So,
timing.
given the same situations, the same facts presented in the same way, the judge and the law should come up with the same decision.
Oh
And
God, it doesn't do
I'm
that at
in,
all. Not at all.
I'm no, I'm generally in agreement that that's what happens. What doesn't happen, what changes that is you get 15 lawyers who know how to BS the hell out of the system, and suddenly it's not the same condition anymore. Right? It's like if you take the exact same conditions and apply the law exactly the same, yeah, there's going to be some differentiation between the judge. There's going to be but in general, the outcome is going to be the same. And I think that's relatively true. But the problem is that when you
No,
start
no, no,
adding
no,
all
no.
the, no, no, the idea here is when you start adding all the other things that lawyers can do, and in this condition and that condition and this precedent and that, and you start bringing all that up, then what you end up is it's not the same conditions anymore.
Oh no, it's not the same condition. It's like if you're in a fight, right? And you're a black belt in jujitsu and you're fighting an 80-year-old dude, it's like the 80-year-old dude's gonna die. Like he's gonna lose every single time because you just have more power, more skill, more technique, right? It's not fair, but it just is.
I don't. Sorry, I don't get that connection with what I was
Oh,
saying.
what I'm tying is the guy with the most resources is going to win.
The
Better
guy
attorneys,
with the
more
most.
money, more manipulation.
So again, more resources means you change the conditions. It's no
You,
longer the same situation.
you change the
Right?
conditions.
The law itself looks at the person the same way. The difference is one person had more resources because of their individual. The law didn't give them more resources. They individually had more resources that they could then go in there and conflate the situation in a way that was to their benefit. The person who didn't have the money is again in the same exact situation, in the same conditions, the results would have been the same. But because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they can't conflate the situation the same way.
Yeah, they don't have the same tools, the resources. They don't have the, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
But if you were to take both people, the rich guy and the poor guy, and the rich guy didn't spend extra money, and he hired the same lawyer and did the exact same situation, you would have pretty much the same result.
You would hope that's supposed to be the
Well, I,
blind
I,
justice.
I do tend to believe that. And so that's why I tend to believe in the idea of equality under the law. The difference is how that it's implemented in each individual case varies on the resources applied. The more resources you put onto a project, the more you can ask for the result to be different.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's exactly what it is. If we look at every court case as a project, how much time, right? Resources, the scope, time, resources, and scope, right? And we look at the triangle and say, well, the rich guy has a lot more money.
A
So
lot more
his
money.
resources, so his triangle is going to be massive in
Yeah.
as far as the quality of the result he's going to have. The guy who's using
Yeah.
a defender, who's only going to be able to put a few hours of effort into this, going to have a much smaller triangle of results.
Yeah, much smarter. Yeah, he's gonna lose. I know I was talking to this one attorney one time and he worked for big pharmaceutical companies. And I just asked him, I'm just curious, like, what's your hourly rate? He's I'm $1,200 an hour, actually. And so I got my jury, whatever the Juris Doctorate, and he goes, I got a PhD in biology, so I can understand some of the terms or whatever. And he says the way that it works, right? Typically, a small company may have a certain drug, a certain patent, or whatever like that. And he goes, you need to understand this is not fair. This is not good. But he goes, this is just the way it works, actually. So I'll go in and I'll assess what their capabilities are. And then I report back to my boss. And he's like, okay, what's it going to take to win this case? And it's like, oh, this is going to cost us $7 million to win, like that. And it's basically what we do is we just throw a bunch of attorneys on it and we make them file so many forms and so many paperworks and we just overwhelm them. And there's certain rules, like if you don't respond to certain things within 30 days, you automatically lose. And we just overwhelm them and they lose. And then at some point we're like, okay, right before we get ready to kill them, we're like, okay, you guys have a choice at this point. We're just going to kill you and you're dead. Or for 5 million bucks, we'll give you 5 million bucks. You give us the patents and you couple founders can go off and live a nice life. And he goes, that's how it works every single time, actually. It's not even
Okay, so
remotely
this
fair.
is a different aspect. You're talking about two different groups who are using the law to figure something out.
Yes.
When I talk about under the law, I'm talking about criminal law.
Isn't that criminal to steal from other people, though?
Is it criminal? Is it a criminal charge? Because then that would be done by the government, who actually files the charges against them. In which case, the government's going up against the corporation. Government has deeper pockets than the companies. If
Oh,
two
no,
companies are going
no,
up
no,
against each
no,
other,
no,
if two
no,
companies
no.
are going up against each other, there's not a criminal case.
No, no, the companies support the government through lobbyists and pays them a lot of money. So the government does whatever the big company wants, typically.
When you're talking about two companies going up against each other, it's not a criminal case.
Well, no, but it's typically no, no, yeah, it's not criminal in that case. But
Okay,
the outcome is criminal, what they're
when
trying
I
to
talk
do.
about, I don't expect two companies to be considered equal under the law. I consider two individuals to be considered equal under the law, in which case what I'm talking about is criminal law. So if you were to try somebody for murder, you try two different people for murder. If the conditions are the same, the results should be pretty much the same. The
Yeah,
difference
but
is
they're
one person
not
who has
though.
money. one person who has money and one person who doesn't, that's one of the biggest factors you're going to get to change things.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, because
And then
under the law, corporations are considered a person.
corporations can be held accountable, but the idea is if you hold a corporation accountable, quite often there's no criminal charges against an individual. Usually they can be
Right,
found
right, right,
false,
right.
but you can't hold a corporation criminally liable because what the punishment is usually monetary.
Yes, right, right.
Criminally liable means you're not going to incarcerate a company. You incarcerate a
Right.
person.
You start
So
per person,
so
yeah.
so 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 I'm talking about individual rights here. Companies don't qualify as individuals, even if the government does all kinds of weird stuff with giving money to politicians and the like. That
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's actually one of the biggest problems we've got is by allowing a corporation to be considered a person when it comes to political
That's the
donations.
problem. And the funny thing is the Democrats were always against that, but now they're like
They got as much money as anyone else. The
they're
problem is,
worse than Republicans now.
well, they got more billionaires on their side, right? At the
Of
end of the
course.
day,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
more millionaires on one side, more billionaires on the other side.
And they so gripe about stuff. I know that both Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, they were talking about this, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, if only we need our Joe Rogan and we need our Elon Musk." And both of them reply back and say, "Dude, you had us, man, and we left you because you were so disastrous in your policies."
And I don't think the left quite realizes that they've divorced themselves from the average person.
Yeah. Well, they're the elitist actually. So typically, pretty much everybody with power, it's designed to support the upper 10% and really the upper 1% and the upper 0.1%. So I'm telling you, man, you want to be in the upper 10%. I mean, your life is so much better because if you go back through 5 years, the upper 10%, they went out really well. I mean, I got to tell you how much freaking money I made during COVID, actually, because of the market, because that's where the bulk of my funds were. I made a shitload of money sitting on my ass, barely working.
That's good. I don't know how much mine went up, but
Dude, the
mine's all
S&P,
mine's all in retirement, so I'm not going to be able to touch it for a while.
that doesn't matter though, but you're invested in the market, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, right, exactly.
yeah. No, I mean, I try to feed as much into there as I possibly can because
Yeah,
if I don't need it now, then I can.
you'll need it later.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I mean, S&P went up last year. It went up 25% actually.
So this gets me worried about the value of things. And are we headed to a point where there's going to be a massive reassessment, kind of everything kind of reestablishing? Because you know how so much money is created by spending money, by taking out loans, by all that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
um, and how that's going to be impacted.
Well, it's fast. Let's go back to this dude that killed that CEO guy, actually.
Uh-huh.
This is a fascinating thing, is to think about the power that one dude can. He assassinated that guy, killed him, cold blood, actually. And I don't know if he had skill or not, but I watched that video, and I would tend to think that guy's killed before, man, because he was methodical and cool and didn't freak out. He was just like going out to lunch. So I don't know what experience that guy had or whatever. But I mean, think of the impact what one guy had with a 3D printed gun. I
That's
mean, it's
impressive.
freaking these CEOs the fuck out. I was watching one show, man, the security firms, man, their phones were ringing off the hook, apparently.
Well, you heard that one guy was saying. One guy was saying that the sad thing about this is that all the CEOs will now have to hire security, and we're all going to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the sad thing about this. He was saying, um,
It's
and
crazy.
the,
It's
the
like
guy
the
who killed
impact.
him, the guy who killed him came from wealth, right? He wasn't a poor family. He was Ivy League educated, or at least college
Yeah,
educated.
smart guy. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like, sorry,
Yeah.
Chris. Okay, yeah, never mind. Nothing urgent. Um, but I think it's fascinating, like, because you think corporations have all the power, but this little tiny guy, I mean, He's
Yeah,
got a lot of power.
so let's look at the kind of power we're talking about, right? If the only power you've got is to kill,
Yeah.
then that's a limited selection of things you can do, because the downstream effects of killing somebody are pretty you have to live with the consequences of your action, right?
Well,
So
maybe
if
he
the
got
only way to
caught.
get attention is to kill, the only way, I mean, it's why do guerrillas fight guerrilla war? Because they don't have the power to affect any other kind of change,
Yeah, this is guerrilla
right?
warfare. This is a different kind. It's not
So
head on.
if we live in a world where you as an individual have no power to do anything but kill people
Yeah.
on the other side, that's a pretty dysfunctional society.
Yeah, but that's humankind. That's been around for thousands of years, right?
Yes, but we've kind of prided ourselves on being better than that.
I think we pretend like we are, but I'm telling you, this social construct
Look at
fabric thing is
look at
very
what
powerful.
happened when the companies got strong in the 1800s and were
Yeah.
treating all their workers poorly.
Yeah, right.
A few of the rich, you know, threw a bone to their to the workers, and gave them public education and all that other
Yeah.
stuff. But at the end of the day, the unions are what gave power to the
Yeah.
individual.
Yeah.
I'm not a big union fan, but when you think about what it allowed the individual to do, was it gave the individual much more power. It was
Yeah,
still
right.
as a group, so it wasn't quite the same thing. But instead of having to go kill a bunch of, you know, industrialists, they could just negotiate through
Yeah.
big unions, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
unions themselves, except for the government anymore, there's not a lot of unions anymore.
Yeah. But that power exists, though. That power exists that an individual can create chaos. Because think about the CEOs, they're freaking out because they're thinking, oh my God, somebody could kill me, you know? And an idea like this, you can't stop this.
Well, no, you go back to Neuromancer, the science fiction book written by William Gibson in, gosh, what, the 80s?
I didn't even hear that. That's what book is that?
Neuromancer.
Oh,
It's in the cyberpunk genre. It's, dark future, dystopian society, big companies, companies bigger than governments, that sort of thing. Um, and in there, I mean, corporate espionage, corporate assassins are just part of the way it is, because the
yeah,
companies were basically countries in their
yeah,
in the size, right? You think about, like, GE at one point was bigger than many countries, right?
yeah,
So um, when you think about it from that aspect, the same issues that a head of state's going to have to worry about, the head of a company is going to have to worry about.
yeah, yeah.
I was actually surprised that CEO did not have security. When I saw that, I was surprised he didn't have security.
Well, my response was, "You're a freaking idiot." But we did clean the gene pool out, but because the dude's getting death threats and he knows he's screwing a ton of people over and he's not getting security. I mean, that's not very smart, you know?
So knowing you're screwing people over, I wonder if he believed he was screwing people over.
Oh, of course, you know.
No, 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 no. Yeah, knowing that your actions to say no to someone or whatever to save money, I think, again, the viewpoint someone could have is, I'm making a corporate decision on a return on investment. We're not going to get a return on investment for doing this, and not even consider that there's an individual who's suffering because of that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's easy to get into that mindset. So I doubt he thought of it as screwing people over.
Oh, that's
He just viewed it as a
interesting.
business decision, return on investment, and therefore, if you don't think you're screwing people over, you don't necessarily think that the emotion that they're feeling is going to have an impact on you.
Oh, that's so fascinating. Yeah, I never even thought about it that way.
Just because you and I was viewed as screwing people over doesn't mean that the person who made the decisions views it that way.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know how much I agree with that.
Otherwise, how can you get yourself to be to not have security in that instance? I think he just didn't think he was in danger, even with the death threats, because it didn't occur to him that he was causing that much suffering for someone.
Yeah, maybe he didn't take it seriously. I don't know. Maybe, the only problem is though, is when you get more powerful, your ego goes up and you
Yeah.
think that you're not human anymore. So it could be I don't know what it was, but I just think it's fascinating. And I think that at some level, this is like a balance of power because I think the general rule is the upper elite ruling class has to pay the peons just enough so they're not going to kill them, right?
Yep, that's why I think that's what UBI is going to become.
I
Universal
think
basic
I think we
income
have to do
is
UBI.
going to become the instead of taxes paid to governments, big companies are going to give stuff to the lower echelons to keep them on the dole and to keep them quiet. Provide them with cheap TV, cheap drugs, cheap whatever entertainment, and it'll keep 99.99% of the people subdued.
And the system will be in balance,
And
right?
then you only have to worry about the 0.01% of the people who might act, and then you pay them off, you hire them, you give them actual jobs that
Security,
make
yeah,
money,
whatever it is,
right? And suddenly you've got a structure
yeah,
where it's not the 1% anymore, it's the 0.01%.
yeah. And you
And
have stable
even
system.
within the 0.01%, the range is like massive from the ultra trillionaires down to the millionaires.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And your system is stable, which is ultimately
Well,
which
it's
is
stable
good
for a
for
while.
everybody.
It's stable until some technology destabilizes it. Because just like
But that
every
happens all the time.
industry, just like every industry is going to be destabilized by technology,
Yeah,
governments can be
yeah.
destabilized by
Well,
technology.
that's what wars, if you go back and look at wars, typically it like goes to the boiling point, you have war, and then you've got tremendous peace for a while, right? So maybe wars are necessary for human beings. Maybe this is a little tiny war we just had, you know?
That 3D printed gun.
Yeah.
So that was all plastic.
Yeah, yeah, 3D printers use plastic. Well, I mean, they have metal 3D printers. They're harder to get, but yeah.
What he just had like the pin was the only part that was metal, the firing pin.
Oh no, 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 no. I'll research this and give you more back. But on a gun, I wish I had a gun here to show you. Um, but the serial number is only what's called the lower. And the rest of everything, part of the gun, we call it furniture. None of that's trackable. Anybody can buy it. No rules, no laws, no anything actually.
Well, I mean that's
But
the philosophy of a ghost gun, right?
no, I'm just telling you how guns work actually. So
Okay.
there's only one part of the gun that's serialized. We typically call it the lower, or the part, on a handgun, the slide goes up on top. That you can anybody can go buy a slide. You can get it sent through the mail, completely 100% legal. But that lower part, that's considered the gun.
Uh-huh.
Now, it won't function by itself, but you can buy all this other sort of stuff with no restrictions. So he was using, I'm assuming he's using a metal barrel. Everything else is metal, except just for what is legally called the gun, which was 3D printed.
No, when they mentioned that it was 3D printed, it actually made me think of that game, that Cyberpunk that I was telling you about. That was actually a role playing. They made a role playing game based upon that whole book and that
Oh,
whole series,
interesting.
Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in there, when you went to get, because you're playing a role playing game, so guns are part of the game. When you went to buy a gun, you went to a guy who just made them in his garage, and he had basically um, tabletop lathes and CNC machines and the like, and he would just
Yeah.
make a gun for you.
Yeah.
And he was like, the expensive part wasn't the making the gun; it was getting the plans to make the gun. It was the
Yeah.
blueprint, right?
Yeah.
And when they said he made a 3D printed gun, I was like, oh crap, that's just like this idea of a world where illegal stuff can happen off the books very easily in small shops.
Totally easy. I mean, I have the ability to make a gun. Please
Yeah,
ask.
you got your
I have a CNC machine. I
CNC
could
over there, yeah.
I don't have the skill to do it, but I mean, probably in a year I could be cranking out super high quality guns. But man, I don't want to go to jail. They catch you and you and the rest of your life's in jail. That's a federal offense. So no, thank you. I'll just go buy a gun that I can have legally. And in Arkansas, they give them away like candy, actually. Literally, you just go into a gun store, and as long as you're not a felon, you can get the gun right now. You just do something called the 4473. You fill it out. You do a background check.
There's a shop over here that just opened a couple months ago. All they sell is ammo, no guns.
Oh, interesting.
And they were saying the reason why is like apparently in California it was so hard to sell guns that they're only making 30, 40 bucks on a gun when they sell
Yeah,
it.
you don't make much money on a gun.
So that they don't even bother with the guns. They just do
You're
ammo.
like, let's say a standard Glock, just run of the mill Glock, let's say a Glock 19, 500, $550. You're lucky to make 10 to 15% gross on it. That's without any other expenses. That's not rent, that's not anything else. That's just your margin. So what is that? 500, let's say it's 1,000, $75 on a gun, if you're
Hmm.
lucky, actually. Yeah, they selling guns is not profitable at all, actually. Selling the accessories that go with it, now that's profitable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The
As
optics,
again, people are willing to spend more money on on stuff when it fits in a particular niche.
Yeah, yeah, optics you can typically make 30, 40%. You can actually make a little bit. I don't know if I told you when I got here, I bought into a gun store. It was a super
Yeah,
bad
you mentioned that.
decision. Freaking stupid, but there you go. Gave me a good tax write-off. So yeah, that's kind of crazy. And yeah, yeah, but now with this technology, we can literally print stuff. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, you watch the makers online who do stuff, and it's like, oh, I need this, and they just go to make and they make it, right?
They go
I need
make it and
I need a bolt that has this threading on it, and well, I'll just go make one.
you just go make it. You just go make it. Yeah. Yeah, if you have some skill, if you have some knowledge, yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah.
really want a glow forge,
What's a
that kind of the laser cutter, that tabletop laser cutter.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah,
The
I've
more
got like
powerful
a
ones will go through metal, but yeah, I just want to go through. I want to go through eighth to quarter inch wood, and because I have some ideas on things I want to make and sell them as a flat pack.
oh, it'll totally do that. I think you can get them for like a couple grand or something. They're not even that expensive.
Glow forges are on the higher side. I think they're 4 to 8 grand depending on which one you
Oh,
get,
four to
but
eight grand.
they have their companies that make them
But you
too.
can buy cheaper ones like for 1,500 bucks that work pretty darn well. It's kind of amazing. So you don't have a 3D printer?
I bought my daughter a 3D printer, but I got the cheap one, and she hasn't used it. So
Which
I
one
just
is it?
whatever the cheapest one is.
I don't
I
know.
forgot.
There's hundreds of
Yeah,
them.
that was like 150 bucks. So
Oh, okay. Those, I mean, I guess they work okay or whatever. But now you can go through Bamboo Lab and you can
mhm.
buy just a small, like an A1 Mini or something for like 300 bucks. And they're
Yep,
really good. I mean, really good. Now, it's not enclosed. You can't control temperature, so you can't print more advanced kind of plastics or
that
whatever.
was one of the things is I didn't realize how much temperature because I had it in the garage and we were trying to use it and it was pretty cold out there, so it wasn't
Yeah, but
working
you
right.
can print PLA, right? And
Yep.
PETG, no problem, actually.
Mhm.
No problem.
No, the PLA wasn't working very well, so I think it's just too cold out there. I need to figure out a better setup,
Oh, interesting.
which
Okay.
actually means I got to sit down and take the time to do it.
Yeah. It's kind of cool though. Like I've got a couple of 3D printers. I got one that's a BIM that's enclosed. Then I have another one that I just recently bought and put together. It's a Prusa. Then I got that one up there that I bought like where is it? Like right there, like on top of my head. I bought here. I'll move out.
Mhm.
That's a Prusa 3 that I bought like 6 or 7 years ago. That it's
Mhm.
broken. It doesn't really work now. But yeah, it's crazy this technology. So it's fascinating. And if which I would highly encourage you to do. I think you'd like this. Go in and get like Fusion or get, I don't know, one of these CAD programs where now you can literally design what you want in 3D. You can export it out and you can literally print.
I found a guy online who's making collapsible flutes,
Oh,
telescoping collapsible
oh,
flutes.
interesting.
Um, and so he's 3D printing them, and you can either buy the flute or buy the plans to make it on a 3D
Yeah,
printer. And I'm
yeah,
looking at that going, maybe I want to do that because the idea I like having musical instruments that are portable, but something this big that expands to like this
yeah,
big, it's pretty darn cool. So
yeah. Yeah, and it's if you want to learn the design stuff, it's a pretty good learning curve, but shoot, man, start now actually. In fact, I think Fusion 360 you can get like a inventor and educator version for free, right? I mean, you're very limited what you can do, but you can learn all the basic design stuff, which is kind of cool.
I mean, years ago I was using AutoCAD and other things. I mean,
Oh, okay.
I installed CNC machines for years.
Oh, you did?
And I trained people on how to use them. I was an application engineer for
Are you
years.
kidding me? I didn't even know that actually. What do you know about CNC machines?
Well, I had to learn how to do the milling and the speed and using the coolant and all that kind of stuff. So,
Oh my gosh, I'm still learning that. I bought this for the gun store, but then I just have it here. I don't need. Um,
yeah, so I would go out and install or service machines too. And like so we had big companies. We had CNC companies buying our CNC machines because we had a higher tolerance, better tolerance on production, and
what
they would use our
tolerances?
machines to make their machines.
What tolerances can you hold typically, or what did you hold?
Well, I mean, most of our stuff was mil spec in aerospace. That stuff that was bought. I mean, Toyota Racing Development had bought a bunch of our stuff, but the coolest thing was out in Elsinore. I think it was Lake Elsinore. There was these one guys who had a small lathe, kind of like the one you have, a little bit shorter, but it was a lathe,
Yeah.
and they were producing custom pieces for fishing rods.
Oh my
And they'd
gosh.
be sitting
Okay.
there drinking beer, and they hit the button, and they would go through all the bar stock, and they reload the bar stock, and then drink a beer, hit a button, and all they made was these like two or three different parts that they sold, you know, for a high cost. And it was like that was their job, was to sit there for a couple hours a day making pieces and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's, you know, it's pretty impressive that they found a niche that could pay that well.
I was thinking about doing that, man. If I could just make a little part or something, you can figure out some little need that a big company is they're just not worth their time, right? Because maybe you sell 100 a month or something like that. But my God, if you could sell it for, let's say, 60, 70 bucks a piece, have like $5 a cost, come out a couple hours a day. I mean, you could be making 5 grand a month doing very little work, you know?
You know, you think about it, if it's something that a company needs to produce a certain amount of to make it cost effective, then they've got to store it because
You got to
they
store it. Yeah.
time. If you could do it on demand,
Yeah.
even yeah, oh, and or cheaper, one or
Yeah.
the other, right? Then you could, in essence, take over some of their, you know, take over orders from from a bigger
Yeah.
company.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And then I have a little laser engraver so I can engrave it with a laser and make an actual product out of it. And it's just, maybe even anodize it, make it look cool little color or something like that, put my logo on it.
Well, I remember we used to go to the is it West Tech or whatever, which was the big CNC, it was a big industrial show here. And you know, we'd set up the booth and we'd have our machines and we'd sit there operating the machines there, making little doohickeys to give out to people who came to the show. And, you know, I had all kinds of things. I had like a screwdriver that we made on a lathe because we had some tools that allow us to mill as well. And so we'd make like a little stubby screwdriver with our logo on the side and hand those out of make them out of aluminum bar
Yeah,
stock.
that's awesome, man. I had no idea you had that background, actually. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did that for a couple of years before I got into IT. So,
That is very cool. That's like really good. Yeah, you got me inspired now, man. I've been really lazy for the past few months. I need to get a, Toastmasters is so encouraging. We got so many good people in there or whatever. Um, one thing,
it's still positive.
it's very positive actually. But there's so many people I don't even know what they do. Like I don't even know what Dan does. I know they're all in some group
So
thing together.
Dan made his money with a, I don't know if it was a window washing business, but it was a business kind of like that, and
Okay, yeah.
he grew it pretty big and sold it. Um, so he's got he's wealthy from that, and then he got into whatever that financial. It's not MLM, but it's kind of like a multi-level marketing financial stuff that Jamar and others do in that group.
Oh, he's doing the financial thing.
He's doing that financial thing. So he and Brian and several others. I think there's half a dozen people in that group that do that.
Oh
So
my
they're part of
God.
it.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
but he started his company. I'm pretty sure he sold it off, and
Yeah.
then now he's doing this. And his big thing is his purpose is to and I think Jamar has said this as well is to teach people about taking control of their finances.
Ah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I'm studying Dave Ramsey stuff because I spend too much money. So, because I like buying stuff. I like toys. I mean, I like tools. I don't know, you know,
Yep. No, I get it.
I
No,
love that stuff.
Dave Ramsey is an interesting guy.
Yeah, I
Because
like his principles though. He's very interesting, you know. I feel like he's a little hard on people sometimes, but
yeah, but that's because people aren't hard enough on themselves.
I mean, he'll commonly call people like he'll say, "Oh God, that's just stupid." You just made stupid. That was stupid with a capital S, in fact.
But
Oh my God.
you hear about that. I mean, who is it who's on PBS? Is it Susie Orman,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, and you would hear people call in and say, "Okay, this is the situation I'm in," you know, and she would have a thing where she would give you an okay or not to do something
You have
if
to
you want.
buy it. Yeah,
Right?
you're authorized to buy
And
this sort of thing.
and so and you listen to the situations, and you know, generally speaking, people don't have good control over their finances.
No, I don't either. I need to control myself more. And I know that even Dave Ramsey, I was watching about buying a new car. He's like, I'm not going to allow you to buy a car, like a new car, unless you have at least $1 million in assets. At that point, I think you can take a little bit of the money out. But man, if you're making 70 grand a year and you got like 20 grand in savings, it's like, hell no, you're not buying a new car. That's the stupidest thing you could possibly do, you know?
Yeah, but he made a comment the other day about like a $4,000 car or something like that. I'm like, I don't know where I buy a four
That
thousand
that will
dollar.
work.
Um, and the thing is, I looked at it like I've owned 9 cars, I guess, in my life.
You own 9 cars now?
I know I have
Oh,
owned
oh,
nine,
oh, you purchased and sold. Gotcha. Yeah.
and when I think about that, it's like the last three we bought new,
Yeah.
and I never would have bought new before. But the thing is, I'm buying new from established models that have been out for years, so I
Yeah.
know what they can do. And the cars I'm buying, the average American car right now is like 50 some odd thousand,
Oh my
$56,000.
gosh, crazy.
And
Yeah.
I'm looking at that going, I have never bought a car over $30,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I bought my Honda CRV was the last car we bought and it was 30,000 bucks.
Yeah.
And it was 0% interest, which
Yeah.
is why I went ahead and did a 5-year loan on it because it was
Yeah.
0% interest,
Yeah.
right? Um, those are the types of things that, yeah, there's no emotion for me to buy a Tesla or any other kind of car.
Yeah.
There's no emotion. As long as it's a reliable car, I don't care.
Yeah. See, that's good, man. I'm not as good as you are. I'm much more emotional or whatever. So yeah, I need to work through that.
No, I don't think I told you. I sat down and calculated the miles per gallon on the car,
Yeah.
and I used different prices, different price points to figure
Yeah.
out how. So if the cost of gas goes up to $4 a gallon or $5 a gallon or whatever it is, and I calculated out how much it would cost to drive the car.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, okay, this is the cheapest way for you, because yeah, they'll say, oh, how much, how much are you willing to spend to get this car, or what can you afford per month? And
Yeah, right, exactly.
I want to know the specs on the car, and I'm going to calculate how much it's going to cost to operate the car.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to figure out how much I can get the car for, and
Yeah.
then I'll have an overall entire cost to own the car.
Yeah.
Once I know that, that's what I'm making my decision on.
Yeah, but most people don't think like that. They're thinking, "Oh my God, I love this car." That's why they
Is it
put you in a test
why,
drive right away.
why won't most people think like that? Because to me, that's the
How they're
whole
made.
purpose of giving them the ability to make decisions and to think and all that.
It's
Why?
just, it's just, I don't know why. It's like, I don't know. That's like asking why a dog's a dog. A dog just a
No, but
dog.
is it simply the wiring? Is it something that's totally uh, something we can't ask someone to do, or is it actually something that we can train people to do? To default to an analysis of a situation,
Well, I think we could.
especially when there's that much money involved. Anything over a couple $1,000s, and I put thought into I analyze it.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I'm hoping that I can get to where you are. Maybe we can start giving people some tools to think about this, right? Because I know my main problem right now that I'm trying to transition to is I'm trying to move from short-term gain to more long-term gain, which means I have to tell myself no today so I can say yes tomorrow. That's my challenge.
The other thought, though, is say no today, and in 6 months' time, if you still want it, then you start thinking about it. Because quite often, if you can just say no today,
Yeah.
in a few months, it's going to change.
Well, and I've established a rule for myself that if I really want something and it's above a certain amount, I've got to wait 3 days just to just the cool down part.
Make it 3 months.
Oh God, no, 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 no.
No, but think about it. In 3 months' time, your interest will have changed enough that you probably aren't going to want it anymore.
Maybe, yeah, I know, but I know even 3 days has slowed my spending down dramatically. I'm getting close to just paying off all this credit card debt from the gun store. Just
Hmm.
such a bad idea. So I'm going to be credit debt free and very soon, probably early next year,
So,
which would be pretty nice.
so what I'll do is if I'm on Amazon and I see something I want,
Yeah.
I'll shove it over into the on my wish list.
Yeah, right.
And then what'll happen is maybe once or twice a year I'll go back and look at it and go, if it's something I still want, the second or third time I look at it, then maybe I'll buy it.
Yeah.
But like during Black Friday, I had this idea that, I want to make stuff out of leather. So
Yeah.
I started looking at all these leather crafting kits, and they're like $10, $25, $40. They're all different prices. And I was like, $10, that's nothing. I
Yeah.
can buy it because it really is nothing. And I said, you know what? Am I really going to sit down and make the stuff that I'm thinking out of leather right now? I mean, I've got a little bit of stuff. I've made stuff out of leather,
Yeah.
but and I'm like, what am I going to do with it? So I went ahead and I put it into the whatever. I missed the Black Friday sale, but
Yeah.
I figure in 3 months' time, if I still want it, it may cost me a couple bucks more,
Yeah.
but I will I will have established that I still want it.
Yeah, yeah. That's man, you got more self-control than I got. That's all I can say. So you got to start teaching me some stuff. Just trying to say no to stuff, because what I'm doing now is it's interesting because now that I'm almost completely out of debt, I'm like, man, do I want to buy this thing? Because if I buy it, now my credit card's going to go up. I'm going to have to pay it off. That's going to suck.
Well,
I don't want to
so
do it, actually.
after we talked about teleprompters, I told you I jury rigged a teleprompter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I also went online to look at how much a teleprompter costs, and anywhere from 80 to several $100s.
yeah.
And I'm like, am I really going to use it that much? Right? At the
Hmm.
end of the day. So, am I going to be able to make money off it? Am I going to
Mhm.
be able to use it? What's the value I'm getting out of it? So,
Mhm.
I now have a jury rig I can put together if I really need a teleprompter.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I think all you need to do on your teleprompter, you just replace the plastic with a nice piece of glass you could probably get for $10. I think you'd be there.
No, yeah, if it's something, I did it once. Am I
Yeah,
going to want to do it again? I don't know yet.
probably
See,
so. Yeah.
this is the thing that I used to have a coworker slash friend when I lived in Japan, and he always bought high end, top of the line stuff.
Yeah.
So when he got into bicycle riding, he bought a $4,000 bicycle.
Yeah, right.
This is 20 years ago. He
Yeah.
bought a $4,000 bicycle, custom made, all kinds of stuff, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Are you going to be riding in 6 months?
Yeah.
What's the deal here?" And he stuck with it for a while, but eventually he got rid of it. I don't know if
You
he ever
know,
got the $4,000 of value out of it.
probably not. Probably not. Yeah. But at the time, though, it bet some emotional need for him, right?
Why?
I can't tell you why. It just did.
Buying the $500 bicycle at the time versus the $4,000 bicycle at the time wouldn't have been quite as nice.
Yeah.
But what's the emotional need that requires 8 times the spending?
Ooh, let me think about that. I don't know. It's definitely, I'll
Right?
tell you, it's definitely there.
If you can get 80% of the financial, like, remember the whole 80/20 rule applies to everything in life. If you can get 80% of the emotional satisfaction by spending 20% of the money,
Yeah.
maybe that's what you should do.
Maybe people don't do that actually.
Right? Because I know it's like I don't want to own a bunch of crap. So I
Yeah.
want to buy something high quality to begin
Yeah,
with.
that's good. Yeah, right.
But on the flip side, if I didn't need it because I lost interest in it,
Yeah.
buying the nice thing isn't good. So maybe you buy the crappy one first, and if there's enough interest there that you decide to pursue it, then you buy the nicer
Well,
one.
I know, or maybe rent it for a couple of times, right? Or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know, Chris. I don't know. Just how
I
people's
just
brain
to
works.
me it's like again the 80/20 rule. 80% of your satisfaction
Yeah.
probably comes from 20% of whatever
Oh,
the effort.
of course. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Spend 20% of the money that you wanted to spend and try to get 80% of the value out of it. And then you can spend the rest of the 80% to get the last 20%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
that.
had a I had a thought. I was listening to something on YouTube, um, and they were talking about Chronos versus Kairos. Have you heard of
Oh,
this?
no.
Chronos is time, right?
Yeah, right.
Chronology, Chronos, and it's the idea of thinking ahead, planning, intention, planning
Yes.
to do something, having intention. And Kairos is about the immediate, having the right moment to act. It's
Yeah.
about action. It's about so the idea being they use the words intention and attention.
Oh, yeah.
So chronos is your planning, it's your intention,
Yeah.
and kairos is your action, it's your
Yeah.
attention. And I liked it because chronos is a word that we've all heard in the past because
Yeah.
of chronology and all that kind of stuff, father time, chronos, whatever you want to call it. But kairos, and it's spelled differently. It's Kairos.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like the idea. We keep talking about you need to act, you need to stop thinking, you need to stop, planning. And the reason why we love to plan and talk is because it feels like we're doing
Yeah, it feels
something,
like
right?
we're doing the work. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we are kind of doing something, but it's not the thing that's going to get us where we want to go.
No, right.
So
It's
I
fun.
think that, yeah. So
I know
I like the term Chronos and Kairos and just the concept of it. I thought was really neat.
those are nice words. I know when you showed me Obsidian, I started working with Obsidian and I got
Hmm.
kind of a little bit addicted to it. And I saw one
Hmm.
video that they listen, you need to be very, very careful doing this because it's gonna make you feel really smart, right? And you're doing some cool stuff. So just be wary of that.
So the guy who started the whole or who's credited with starting the whole, is it Zettelkasten system, which
Yeah,
is
which
the
is yeah.
is that German doctor or something like that
Yeah, I have
who
the book. It's like how to take smart notes. It's like a blue
he had like
cover.
72,000 cards of
Yeah.
information, but he used that to write books
Yeah.
on a variety of topics. He
Yeah,
was just really
papers,
good
all sorts of stuff.
at documenting
Yeah.
thoughts and ideas, and that's the one thing. It's what journaling does. It's what all this stuff
Yeah.
does, that it helps us take stuff out of our head and put it down
Yeah.
in a place we can find it.
Yeah. So you can think through it. I take this class from this ex-Navy SEAL guy. And he's like, you want to write? Because if you don't write it down first, the term he uses technically, it's called otherwise you'll just be babbling. And he goes, that's what most people do. They just babble. If you,
Yeah, when you mentioned what's his name, Jordan Peterson earlier, and how is it? What's the word I want? Erudite. How good his vocabulary is and what
yeah,
he says. And I wonder how much thought goes behind every sentence we hear out of him.
a lot of thoughts. And I think at some point he's done it for so long, now he's sort of got patterns and habits and he's got like for instance, if you study jujitsu for 5 or 6 or 7 years, actually, you don't need to think about it anymore. Things just happen automatically. And it's totally cool. But man, without that, you got to put in the time, to do that.
Well, and I was thinking, like, are there core? One of the things I was watching was talking about how when you watch any of these influencers or famous
Yeah.
thinkers or people, they all have certain phrases and terms that they use
Yes.
on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah.
They've created this terminology
The language. Yeah.
that that is specific to their thinking,
Yeah.
and they've incorporated it, and they've got sayings and the
Yeah.
like all around it. And it's almost like when you if you want to compare it to your jujitsu, when you learn a move and you've got it down to the point where you don't even think about it, it just
Yes.
you are able to deliver it without thought.
Yes. Right.
Right. And I think that's what happens with a lot of when you put enough thought into it, enough energy into thinking about stuff, you find a way to phrase it, you find the terminology that fits what you want to say, and
Yeah.
you use it.
Yeah, yeah, it's very careful. And I think that is really possibly, so we should try to wrap this up in a couple of minutes because we've been like a little 2 hours actually. Um, I think though when I lost my thought where I was going with this, never mind, forget it. I'm getting hungry. My I lost my thought, but it was really good what I was going to say.
About
Let me see. Okay, I got it. I got it. I think that's the difference between free will and predestination because when you're going through jujitsu for year after year after year, you're making the decision to do something in a certain way. But then when you're required to do that, it's no longer free will. It's pre-programmed in, right? It's moved from your frontal lobe, where you actually have free will, back to your reptile brain, where things just happen automatically without thought, you know?
Okay, so what are you extrapolating from free will and predestination there?
Well, free will is a choice. I've decided that I want to learn a particular skill set or language or something. So it's like this is free will. I got to study, I got to practice, and I got to struggle, and I got to overcome things actually. And I've got to basically, in essence, I've got to cross complexity because it's a very complicated thing to learn until it becomes so easy, until it becomes so second nature. I don't even think about it. It just sort of happens, you know?
Well, what I was getting at though is, to me, it sounds then like you're saying the default way we live our lives is predestination, in that our bodies are going to react in a
Oh
certain way.
yeah, yeah,
Mind
yeah,
is going to react in a certain way. However you grew up, however you were trained, however your biochemistry works, it's going to react in a certain way.
yeah, right.
But by taking time to think through how you want things to be, you can then train yourself. You can then use your free will to adjust the circumstances so the predestination part changes to a different result, right?
Yeah,
Like if I can't play basketball and you give me a basketball to make a shot, I'm not going to make the
right.
shot. But if I want to get to a point where I can make the shot, then I've got to repetitively learn the skill of making the shot,
Yeah.
such that next time you give me a ball, I can make the shot without
You're
even
gonna make the
thinking
shot. Yeah.
about it. The
Yeah.
predestination is I'm going to miss in the first hand, but when I sit there and learn how to shoot a basketball over repeated efforts and the like,
Yeah.
then I'm basically creating the pathway where now the predestination is I'm going to make the shot.
Yeah. 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 I think so. I mean, it's kind of rough, but I think kind of that
It's
does
your
make sense.
discipline versus what? What's the opposite of discipline?
Discipline just going by your feelings. You're just driven by your emotions, you know?
Yeah, no. Discipline versus not intention. Desire. Um, Inspiration versus discipline, maybe. No,
I don't know. It's not clicking for me.
I'm trying to think because I think one of the things that you often hear people say is it's not just I want to do incredible things. It's I've
Yeah.
got to get disciplined to the point where the result is I'm able to make the incredible thing the norm,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that takes the discipline in the middle. So I want to create a different predestined outcome. I want to create a better predestined outcome.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of programming and discipline and development that will let that happen.
Yeah.
Right? If I create a program that does one thing, but I want it to do something else, I'm gonna have to reprogram that program or recreate that program to do something else.
Yeah.
And
And
that
it just comes
effort in the
through.
middle, that's the part where I'm actually applying my free will. That's the part where I'm actually applying my discipline. There's a whole bunch of words I'm using here, but I think the idea is the results don't change. The work to make the result repetitive changes.
Well, the result will change based upon what your inputs are, right?
No, that's what I'm getting at. It's like if you create a situation where you're always going to do a certain response to a jujitsu move,
Yeah, right, right,
right?
exactly.
You want the response to be the best response possible. Right
Yeah,
now,
right.
it's not the best response possible. So you
Yeah.
know that you want a repetitive result.
Oh, you want
And
a
so,
predictable outcome. I'd rather
right?
say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that the idea, what I'm saying is, you think about the result you want, and then you build the ability to get it
Yeah,
over and
you got
over.
to go to the work, put in the, people call it put in the reps. I mean, whatever. Yeah.
So I guess then, if you wanted to apply that to life and religion,
Yeah.
if I want your outcome, your predestination is to live a good life, whatever you've defined that as. Taking care of people, having enough to, being a kind person, whatever those
Yeah.
things are. And then the self, what is it? Not predestination. The other one.
Predestination, free will.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry. I couldn't. So the free will part of it is to build all the things that'll make sure that the outcome, that the predestined aspect is there.
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I've,
Huh.
it's interesting because I've heard like only in from my jujitsu master talking about like fights he's in. And he talks in terms of, and he believes this at his core, right? Is like, before I go into the ring, this fight's already won. It's done. It's decided. All I have to do now is just execute what I've been training for most of my life to do.
It's like Sherlock Holmes in the movie where Robert Downey Jr. is calculating
Yeah,
all
exactly
the
right,
angles of
right.
the fight and everything. Yeah,
He goes, this is done.
basically
This
he's
is
seen the
pre-done.
entire fight in his head before he even has the fight.
Yes, yes, yes. Maybe that is the difference between predestination and free will, you know? Because if you've established what I'm going to do when certain conditions or criteria happen, you really no longer have any free will.
So when you think about like the military has their standard operating procedures, right?
Yeah,
Their
right.
SOPs. The purpose of that is to be able to make sure that the outcome is one that you want,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The reason why you create standard operating procedures is to make sure that the output, the outcome, is within a certain range of acceptable
Yeah, right.
outcomes.
You have an upper and a lower limit. As long as you're somewhere in here, we're good. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
Well,
does that mean that life is just a cycle of free will and predestination?
yes,
Or
I think,
predestination is the state you're in,
yeah,
and the state that becomes,
yeah.
and that everything else is just about establishing your predestined result.
Yeah, and I don't think that they're mutual, because everybody thinks in terms of, oh, it's predestination or free will. And I think it's and, but it's like, are you doing free will or are you doing predestination at this particular point? I think that's a way to look at it. I don't know that it's the right way. It seems too simple to me, but
No, but I think if you think about working backwards from a goal,
yeah,
it makes sense, right? So I want to make $1 million a year.
yeah.
Working backwards from that, you want to create the conditions by which you will get $1 million a year.
Yeah, right, right, right.
Right? And those conditions could be thousands of different things.
Certain set of skills, all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah. Sales, whatever the heck it
Yeah,
is that
right.
you're doing. But the idea being, your free will is to choose how you get to that destination.
Oh, yeah, that and that you want that destination. That's free will as
Well,
well too.
you have to choose the destination
Yeah,
you're
right. Yeah.
right.
But you get to choose.
But if you look at it from that sense, all goals are predestination.
I think so. Yeah. I mean that's not. I mean, I'm
But
sure I
that
could
means
chip away at that a little bit, but that's not a
that means
bad
it's not
start.
God's predestination; it's your predestination.
Yeah, but God made you that way, right?
I'm not trying to take that away. What I'm saying is, instead of saying that God decided all the things that are going to happen in the world or in the universe, you could say, I decided this. And then I figured out the path. I used the free will that I've been given to
Yeah.
make this happen,
Yeah.
right? And if you want to say, oh well, God wanted me to do this or whatever, that's a different element of what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. What I'm talking about is the idea of, are we destined to do certain things? And I think the level you're having that conversation at's important. Am I having that conversation at the level of myself or my purpose in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much is built in because I know with kids you start seeing they just automatically just start gravitating towards something, right? It's almost like automatic. It's almost like it's built in. They just have certain desires and interests. And that's why I think if I had kids, I'd be trying to expose them to a whole bunch of different things just to kind of see which one clicks with them.
Hmm.
Because kids change all the time, right?
Hmm.
Oh, I'm going to be an astronaut. Oh, now I want to be an attorney now. I want to be, but eventually they stick on something.
I think people actually change too.
Yeah, people change. Yeah, your environment changes you. Your environment controls tons of your behavior. And that's part of predestination free will too, is like if you're smart enough to realize that, then you're like, oh, let me modify my environment to get certain behaviors.
Well, that's where the idea of surrounding yourself with people who are of a particular mindset and all that kind of stuff come into play, right? So
That's why Toastmasters is so good, right? Because there's actually a group of pretty darn positive people that, like everybody in there has got some reasonable levels of skill.
that's one of the things I really wanted. I know that we had to cancel our holiday party from that we were going to have, at least the
Yeah.
way we wanted to have it. One of the things I really wanted to do was I wanted a chance for every person to explain to the group why they valued the group.
Oh, that's interesting, actually.
Because it would build a mindset of first of all you're starting with the assumption I value this group.
Yeah, right. Well,
and
I
then
would assume
and
if you
then
come, right?
and then a way to articulate the value you see from the group.
Yeah,
And for some people that's very easy to do. For
yeah.
some people it's very hard to do.
Very hard. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you need other people to help you, like, flesh that out or fish that
Why
out.
why why do you value your family? Why do you value your wife? Why do you value your pets? Why do you value whatever it is?
Yeah,
And being able to articulate that.
is important, actually. It's really important, actually. You
Well,
have tremendous power to influence if you've pre-thought through a set of words that are compelling. Man, it's
yeah.
hard to argue against that sort of stuff.
And,
Like,
and well, the other thing is for it to have real impact, it has to have an element of emotion to it, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
can tell you why I value my car because I've gone through and calculated all the things that make it, but none of those are going to mean anything to you in a really in an impactful way,
yeah, yeah,
right?
right.
Unless I tell you my car represents freedom to me, my car
Yeah,
represents some emotion or some aspect that goes beyond just
Oh,
uh, a
yeah.
value
I mean,
dollar value judgment.
and that's okay. I mean, some people just for the pure joy of the car. Other people, which is I tend to be more like this. Look, man, it's a tool because I need to go there and I need to go there and I just need a reliable car, you know? And as long as it works, that's all I care about.
Mhm.
So I don't get a pure emotion out of a car, but my wife does. She is like, oh my God, look at the car. You know, she's just like, that's the end game, right?
My wife isn't about that. My wife, the only thing that she's now needs in a car, which she didn't need a couple of cars ago, is seat warmers.
You know, oh my God, I was just thinking that. That's what she says too. It's like the only thing I don't like a car is because it gets colder here. So I just need my ass warm when we drive around.
So anymore, she doesn't care about sunroofs and all the other things that come on a trim package in a car. She just wants, I want enough to get the butt warmer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important. Being warm is nice actually. And I live, you know, the older I get cold easy, and I don't know why actually. So I put a mini split in, so the car is like in the garage here, and it's beautiful. If it's like snow outside or something, because I keep the garage pretty warm. I keep it at like I don't know, typically from 77 to 80 degrees, actually, which I just feel really comfortable. Like what is it right now? It's 76 degrees at 29% humidity right
You're
now.
probably warmer than I am right now because in the mornings my I don't run the heater at all because my wife doesn't like the air
The
conditioning.
dry,
It's too
yeah.
dry. So it's 60 degrees in the morning when I wake up in the house
Yeah,
inside the
that's
house.
cold.
So like
Yeah.
right now I've got lined pants on, I've got this long sleeve sweater on, and it's actually it's pretty cold outside today. It's 61 degrees outside today.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay, okay. Yeah, ours is a little lower than that. I think it's going to start raining. But you know, the cool thing is I can I had to pay to do that. I'm glad I had money to do it. Other people might be think it's kind of really silly that you would pay. Very few people, even in Arkansas, have heat and cooled garage. It just is what it is actually. But I'm like, I want to pay for it. And I have to pay a little extra in electricity, but I get exactly what I want actually. And to me, that's really important because I work out here most of the time. I built the little bench and I've got everything just how I want it, you know? So it's
I have double think on this. One is I look at you and go, "Gosh, you're weak. Why would you do that? Why would you spend the money on that? You could do other things." And the other side, I'm like, "Well, it makes sense. You're outside all the time. This is where your main office is. This is where you're working from, right?" So I can look at both sides of that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because part of I can build a whole thing about why it's wrong that you're feeding the your weak side and you're feeding the comfort side and you should be going for the hard stuff and you should be you should be challenging yourself and blah 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 all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff,
right.
right? But then on the flip side it's like, but you've worked hard, you've got the money, you've got the ability to make it comfortable. Why wouldn't you make it comfortable, right?
Yeah, as long as which I don't do this actually. You need to hold me account. Well, I need to hold myself accountable. You don't need to do anything. Um, but as long as you willfully, intentionally put yourself in hard situations every day.
I don't think we do that enough as
No. And
I
that's
don't think
how your brain grows. Have you seen the
so.
issue the video on who is it? Who's the guy? Jordan Peterson, the neurologist, whatever. I can't remember his name. Huberman.
Huberman, yeah.
Huberman. He talks about this. Oh, he was talking to who's the other guy? The guy that says the F word in every single sentence that can't construct a sentence without the F word.
Goggins.
Yeah, exactly. That guy. And so Huron was so excited to talk to him, and he's like, "You know what you've been doing is I can prove it by science now." And Goggins is like, "Duh, dude, I've known this for a long time. It's like I don't need you to tell me it's the right thing. I know it's the right thing." But Huberman talks about the fact that your brain will grow. There's a certain part of your brain that if you intentionally do hard things that you don't want to do, there's two conditions: something you don't want to do that will cause you to be able to do more hard stuff. And
Yes.
yeah,
But I also think to a great extent, a lot of the problems we have in society today are because we didn't go through people don't go through the same hardships they used to.
no, no, it's so much easier now. Now, let me tell you something. What would be really good for me, which would be even better, is if I was to just turn this thing off, knowing at any time I could just hit a button and in 15 minutes it's going to be back where I wanted to be. And I intentionally subject myself to that.
Yeah.
That is a better solution.
In 2022 I spent the whole year doing cold showers. Every shower I had was a cold shower.
I've done a few of those. Those are pretty intense,
I
actually.
did it for a whole year. Now, admittedly, when the temperature outside is 50 degrees, I mean, well, ground temperature on because most of the water's coming from the ground. Ground temperature waters doesn't go below about 50 degrees
Yeah, it's
anyway.
probably about the same all year round. It
So
doesn't keep it
in the
in.
summertime, it's easy to do. In the wintertime, it's a little bit harder
Yeah,
to do. But I didn't do ice baths. Now, that would be a next
yeah,
level.
it's a different
I've
level.
been wanting to get a one of those chest freezers and fill it with ice water and use that. But the thought is knowing I was going to do it. It was like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I never questioned I'm going to do this. The last couple of years I haven't done it very often, and it's like now it's like I'm resistant. I don't want to do it.
Well, because it sucks for the first. No, let me tell you, that first few seconds, whew, that's an experience.
It's not going to kill you. I mean,
I know it's not going to kill you,
why
right?
can't you do it? I mean, that's the amazing thing about our brains, right? It's like it's discomforting, so we shy away from it.
Yeah,
It's like
let's try it.
I'll sit there and watch TV, I'll watch the news or something like that. And it'll be 2 hours have passed, and I was like, I just sat here
Yeah,
watching TV. I could have been doing kettlebells or dumbbells or push-ups or something to keep my body moving while watching TV,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't.
You don't. I know because that's weakness, right? It's just weakness. It's
It's
just.
it's just your body conserving energy. I mean, conserving energy is life. Life is conservation of energy.
Yeah, but it makes you weaker. It's not good for you. It makes you less capable of doing stuff, you know?
But life isn't about Okay, so this is the other thing: is life isn't about capability to do stuff, is it?
Well, part of it certainly.
I mean, as an amoeba, gonna work out and get stronger and do more stuff.
Yeah, but man, we got free will. We got
We're
free
just
will.
galactic sized amoebas is all we are.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no,
And
no, no, no.
so if you look at it from that standpoint, then look at life not as from as just a function of or just a process that happens in nature. If you look at it from that standpoint, we're no different than an amoeba. We're going to conserve energy as much as
No,
possible.
we're
That's why
animals. There's no
that's why
doubt.
we want to be warm. That's why we wear clothes to conserve the heat energy that the energy we have to
Yeah,
spend on
yeah,
heat, right? This
yeah,
is what life does. Now, as the intellectual part of us goes, we can do more. That's where you challenge yourself, and that
yeah.
takes effort. It takes energy just to decide to do more.
I
It takes
know.
energy just to decide to challenge yourself.
Until you start building habits up, right?
Well, and so that's where discipline and habits come into play. Is
I
like
know.
you just say I'm going to do this, and you somehow commit to it in your head, where it's not even a question. Like so, that year that I did showers, I didn't even
You
question.
didn't
Do I?
question. It just was your thing. Yeah.
I just did a cold shower.
Yeah, your free will happened to get you to do that, but now is just a habit.
Actually, at some point, you need to take away the free will.
Oh, most things. Yeah, 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 yeah. I
So
think
maybe
that
that's it. It's a cycle of free will
yes,
and then no free will, and then free will.
correct. Yep, 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 yep. I think that's exactly right. I think that's a better way to look at it. Not do we have free will or predestination? Well, both are true. Both are true.
So you know how they say you only have a certain amount of energy to make decisions every day.
That's in question now, but yeah, some people say,
So like the idea that Steve Jobs always wore the same clothes, so he never had to think about what he was
yeah,
going to wear,
right.
right? There you go. He took away his own free will. He had the free will to decide whatever he wanted to wear.
Yeah, of course.
But
Yeah,
he decided, boom, I'm not going to deal with that anymore. I'm not going to spend any energy on that anymore. And so he made it such that he didn't have to spend any of his free will
yeah, yeah.
on that.
Yeah, or time or effort or thought or whatever. Like if you consider thought free will, which probably does make sense. I think that's true. I think thinking is free. Oh boy, I gotta be careful with this one. It
Yeah,
could
you got to
be
be
free
careful with
will.
it.
It
But
could be free will.
I think decision making requires free will
Yeah, yeah. That,
because if you don't have to make a decision, like let's say the decision is already decided because it's always going to be this way,
it's way easier.
and
Yeah,
then it's not a decision anymore. It's just a predictable outcome.
yeah. And that becomes whether you external motivation or external motivation, right?
So then really what happens here is the best life you can build is to program the outcomes you want
Yep.
by using your free will, your decision making capability to program outcomes, and that's where those habits come. And that's where
So you
what's his
build
name?
habits. Yeah, right, right. Yeah.
What's the habit book?
Atomic habits.
Atomic Habits. Yeah, the idea of you build little habits, and
Yeah.
then you group them together and build bigger habits.
Yeah.
Right? It's like using Legos. You build a bunch of little mini
Yeah.
pieces of Legos, and then you
Yes.
put them together and make bigger pieces of Legos, and pretty soon you've got a building or whatever.
Yeah, and it's this power of like compound interest. It's just little baby steps, but on a consistent everyday basis. You turn around 6 months later and you're like, holy crap, I've come each step was small, but it's like, man, I've come a long way.
1% a day, I think after 2 months or so is over double.
Yeah, and I don't think you can get 1% a day, but if you could, that would be amazing, actually. But even if you get a tenth of a percent a day, I mean, that's that's amazing. I talked to this guy named Bill Austin. He's multi-billionaire, right? Worth several billion dollars. He owns Starkey, a hearing aid company. And I was sitting talking to him one time, and he's like, "You probably want to know how I got here." And he basically just told me, he goes, "I'm not really a smart guy." But he said, "What I did is I was very lucky that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And every day I would just go put my boots on and go to work for 10 hours a day. And next thing you know, here I am, here I am, 5,000 employees, several Gulfstream jets,
That
basically
that may be what the hardest thing, right? Knowing what you want to do.
your purpose. Yeah. That's what I'm struggling with right now. I do have to wrap this up though, Chris. I'm in a few minutes actually. But I believe my purpose has just been revealed to me and I'm fighting it. I'm supposed to be a teacher. I'm supposed to teach people stuff. It's like it's almost in my mind, I feel guilty about it. It's a crime that I learn stuff. I've been given all these resources, and yet I'm not teaching, I'm not sharing anything. All I do is consumption. All I do is watch a bunch of YouTube videos to learn stuff, and I never recycle that around.
So easy to consume.
So because it's pleasurable, right?
The other thing though is like I share information with people.
Yeah.
Today, I was talking to Andrew, and I was telling him about that Notebook LM that I've been using so
Oh
much,
yeah.
right? So I took all, so today's speech by Clement was all about the different roles
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
club, and so I actually took all the PDFs, the one-page PDFs from
Oh yeah.
Toastmasters. I popped them onto here, and I told Notebook LM create a marketing podcast that explains the roles and
Oh,
why people
nice,
do it.
nice.
So it created a little 30 minute, podcast that said why you should want to do these roles.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, I need that for since he works on behavioral mental issues,
Oh
mental
yeah.
disorders. So there's a book called the DSM, which is the disorders kind of handbook or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So while we were talking, I took it, I dumped it in there, and I said, okay, tell me something to ask it. And he was asking, okay, so what are the criteria for this kind of disorder? And I called it up and I said, and it came up with stuff because he wants to create checklists. And I said, it's all going to be in how you prompt it and in the kind of information you
Yeah.
get. But there's no reason why you can't now focus on asking questions and not having to have it all here.
Yeah, right, right.
You need to understand it here at
Oh
some
yeah.
level to really make it useful. But that doesn't mean you have to have eidetic memory to remember everything you've ever
Yeah.
read, right? Because what'll happen is it'll come up, it'll have an explanation. You have to have enough common sense on the topic to be able to go through and check for BS.
Yeah, it's like your assistant. It's
But
a
it's a
really
it's
good
amazing what
start.
you can do. So I taught him that. I gave him the link so he can play around with it, and
Yeah.
maybe that's something. You know, is that what have I done my good deed for the day teaching him
I
that?
think
I don't
so.
know.
I think that's really good actually, because think of come here. Come here, kitty. Think about the leverage that you've created for him.
Well, because he wanted to create tools for people who are trying to pass certain tests in
Yes.
diagnosis
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And I'm like, this if they're not using this already, they need to be using this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I use ChatGPT. You use it too. For all kinds of crap.
I don't use it very much. I need to start using it like more often or whatever,
I
but
use it for. I was using it for math questions the other day. So I
yeah.
was taking actual math questions off of a test, feeding them in there, and it's stuff that I knew when I was in high school or
Yeah, right,
college,
right.
but I didn't know it anymore. I typed it in there, and it gave me the answer. I go, oh yeah, I remember that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yes, yes. I'm learning what am I learning? Some a little bit of calculus, differential equations, stuff like that support my electronic stuff or whatever. And it's really cool because, the problem with calculus is the concept of calculus is pretty simple. It's the part that mixes you up is all the damn algebra that you've got to do.
So yeah, so because I'm good at basic algebras and stuff, but when it came to like, I forgot all the sines and cosines and tangents and
Yeah, right.
logarithms and all those things. And as soon as I say it, I go, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't use it in day to day life. So why am I going to remember it?
I know, and why I don't think that, and a lot of people like they really frown on that, and I'm like, why would you frown on that? Because I'm using this tool like a car. I don't need to understand how the car works. I mean, the mechanics of it. I just know how to drive the damn thing, right? So give me an equation, I calculate the area under the curve. I'll just let Chat GPT do the math for me, right? It's going to get it right every single time.
If the purpose is for you to be a very well-rounded person, then maybe the idea of you relying on AI is a problem. But if that's not the purpose, if the purpose is for you to solve a particular problem, then
Yeah.
then there's nothing wrong with it. So
No, it's
it's
it's like
so
yeah.
they're adding value or principles in there that aren't that because you're not meeting some principle in their mind by doing that.
Yeah, like these little clipper, I use them all the time. I just have them right here. Beautiful little pair, $30 clippers. I clip just the my little plastic stuff. I can just clip it a perfect angle, a perfect cut. I don't need to know how to invent this damn thing. I it's just a tool, right?
I have scissors.
Like scissors, yeah. Yeah, I got some scissors too. I got all kinds of different scissors. Here's some other
but
scissors.
but
But let me
I
tell you something. These scissors don't work as good as this because, man, I can get like I mean, I can get a precision cut with this thing. It's beautiful.
but the idea because I was just thinking earlier today when they were doing table topics during Toastmasters today.
Yeah,
And for table topics is the ad hoc where someone asks you a question you have to answer on the fly.
yeah,
The first question was about food, I think it was, and we're
yeah.
asking a question about food, and my first thought went to cooking, and then extrapolating from cooking that it is an amalgamation of all the science I ever learned.
Yeah, I suppose
I,
it's sort of
I not all the
chemistry.
science, but all heat, thermodynamics, physics, the ability to cut stuff, the ability to cook it, what happens when you cook stuff,
Yeah,
chemistry. And I
yeah,
was going through my head going, that's an example where I could extract say, why do I love cooking? I think the question was, why do you love cooking? And I said,
yeah,
I love cooking because to me, it's science, and I get to figure crap out.
yeah.
Baking is like a formula. It's a chemical
Oh,
formula,
yeah, right,
right?
right, right,
And
right.
if you get one part of it wrong, you screw up the entire formula,
You screw up the whole thing, actually.
right?
A,
So
a woman, yeah, right. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, please.
that's why. Well, what's the TV show on Apple? Something to chemistry.
It's funny though, Chris. A woman may answer that differently. She doesn't care about the science. She's like, man, this is how I feed my family, right?
Hmm.
This is how I show love to my family. I take care of stuff.
But what I find interesting is you can probably talk to someone who's a baker
Yeah.
who's not a science person,
Oh, right.
and
Yeah.
you're talking about switching up ingredients, and they're gonna no, 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 you can't do that. That's
Yeah,
not
you
gonna
can do
work.
this. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if I bake in Denver at 5,000 feet, the temperature
Yeah.
has to be 10 degrees higher,
Yeah.
or whatever, right? If I'm here and I'm below sea level, then it's gonna have or the humidity, all that stuff's gonna have an impact.
Yeah.
And suddenly science is become intrinsic in the way you understand the world without even knowing that it's science.
Oh my gosh, of course. Absolutely. So let me just okay, I gotta go. Can I just say one more thing before we go? Um, so I wanted to learn more about electronics because they felt really insecure about teaching how to use an oscilloscope, and I didn't even understand the basics, right? I mean, I understand Ohm's law, but so I found a course from MIT, the same exact course. It's like $300, and it's like an open source thing, and you can watch all the videos. It's so cool, actually. But one of the things that they talk about is the essence they start with physics, right? And so they call what is it, lump matter distribution or something like that, where they extract out concepts and Maxwell's equations really models this stuff precisely, actually. But they're like, it's complicated, it's hard, right? And there's a lot of math involved. So what we've done is we've created Ohm's law. As long as you're operating inside this box, Ohm's law will work. As long as you don't go out of the boundaries, if long as you don't go outside of your box, You can calculate very complicated things that you'd have to use Maxwell's equation with these simple little tiny formulas, and they're 100% right every single time, actually. And we call that abstraction. And they're basically showing that everything abstracted off of physics, off into fundamental electronics, all the way up to computer science, all the way up to programming your game system. It's all abstracted from previous levels, actually. And it gets easier and easier and easier the more you abstract, up the ladder. So you don't need to understand physics to be, and they make this point, to be a really good designer of electronic cool stuff. You don't need to understand all this stuff. You just don't. And you can be highly effective.
Or are you arguing that you actually do understand it?
No, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Because
That
the more
like
you
like
go down
like
in
like
physics,
someone who's a master at playing pool
yeah.
understands dynamics,
But I don't
right?
think he
They
understands
understand Newtonian. They understand Newtonian physics without necessarily having to calculate things out.
yeah, they may not know any formulas, but they're just knowing just through, and this is how it's all done. This is how formulas come out. It starts with just observing and plotting. Oh, if I hit it here, it goes there. If I hit it there, and eventually you start to get like a string, or you see a pattern if you start to graph it out. And they're like, "Oh, damn, I wonder if there's like a math formula that could be able to like predict that." And then that's how formulas get created. But it's all done through observation, pushing on stuff. Like watch a little kid. Have you ever seen a little kid learn? They're just like stepping in puddles and pushing on stuff, and they're little swingy little toys. And man, they're like learning how to interact with reality. They're learning physics and all that sort of stuff. It's crazy. And it's going into their body. They're like, oh, I don't know anything about equations, but I know how to do this because I've just messed up so many times.
And that's what we need to get back to is understanding that because then your feelings don't matter. The feelings of the kid as he's doing these things doesn't really matter. He's learning based upon the interaction with the world.
Yeah, he's fully embedded in reality. Oh, I
And that's
push
what
here.
and
Ooh,
that's what we screw up when we force certain behaviors on people and the
yeah,
like because they don't have to deal with the consequences of what they're doing.
yeah,
Like,
right, right.
when little kid's learning, they have to deal with the consequences of what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Come here, kitty. Come here, cat. Come on,
Oh,
let's
just so
check
you
the
know, so
truth.
last time I mentioned I was going to record some songs and stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't write the article. I need to do that today, but
Okay.
I did record some songs, and I realized how off key I was in singing. So now I've got to figure out
See, but
how to
that's
do.
perfect, though. You wouldn't have known that unless you actually took the first step.
In my head, I am perfectly in pitch.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. So then when I'm listening to the recording, I'm going, I didn't quite hit it there. I got close, but I didn't hit it. So then I figured if I sing slowly, I can actually hit the pitch. But when I sing at speed, I can't.
That is so funny. That is so jujitsu, man. It's like when you go into jujitsu, you just think you're going to kick everybody's ass. And then reality sets in and you're like, oh my God, this dude was just toying with me. He could kill me at any second and there's nothing I could do about it. That's humbling. Jujitsu, I could never have had my relationship with God without going through jujitsu, actually, without having a master that totally loved me, actually. It's a crazy sort of experience, because when you go to jujitsu, as long as you can get over a few months and people think you're not an asshole, that you're actually there to learn, you're now loved. You're now part of this community. Even though you're a white belt, you're in the you're in the tribe, and the tribe loves you and protects you and disciplines you. Because sometimes you get a little snippy or you get a little out of line or something, and you quickly get put back in line, right? I mean, it happens fast. Because like even a black belt, yeah, come over here. You're kind of beating that white belt. Come over here and play with me a little bit. And then you realize, oh shit, I know nothing.
Isn't that all self-awareness?
It's not self-awareness, it's they're making you aware very quickly, actually.
Yes, but if you didn't develop self-awareness, you wouldn't be in that group anymore.
Uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're getting self-awareness, but they're assisting in your self-awareness process, actually.
Yeah, so how you build self-awareness isn't what I'm getting at here. I think
Oh, yes, you're getting very self-aware,
so the value of that that training that you've got is that you're very self-aware of what your limitations are, what you can do, what you can't do,
Oh my gosh, yes.
right?
Yes, yeah, I'm very self-aware of the fact that you can't tell by how somebody looks what their skill level is. And man, you better be nice to everybody. And you quickly figure out, I only fight in these particular conditions. If at all possible, I want to walk away, if all possible.
But what that means though is that the self-awareness that you have means that you can now question other aspects of your life. So you now know that you can't judge a person's fighting ability by the way they look.
You cannot. Yeah.
That means, can I judge a person's finances by the way they look? No. Can I judge
No,
a
of
person's
course not. Yeah.
education by the way? But all those things, as soon as you start to ask the question once about their fighting ability, you'll be asking the question about every aspect
Every
of
aspect about it. And you, this is where humility comes into fact, is like, damn, I got that so wrong. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff I got wrong.
But then you start asking questions about yourself at that point.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
so how am I coming across? Am I coming across as strong? Am I coming across as arrogant? Am I coming across as whatever, right? And
Yeah.
then you start to think, maybe I am arrogant. Maybe I am. So am I coming across as arrogant? Then turns into, well, maybe I am arrogant. And then
Yep.
you start looking at yourself and goes, am I arrogant? Am I actually better than the other person on this? Am I actually better than them on this? And that. And so I really think self-awareness, the way that I define it, as truly questioning your real value in a variety of areas against the world in
Oh,
general
oh, yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
is the critical part for you to be a balanced person.
And that's why what you do is you intentionally put yourself into hard things so you learn,
Mhm.
You take your cold.
Or
I'm in here taking
maybe
cold.
that's it. You put yourself in hard things because you aren't good at if you aren't good at identifying when to ask these questions, then you have the only way to do it is to put yourself in hard situations where you learn by confronting reality,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
and and that then teaches you the truth, as you talked about earlier, about a situation. Whereas, like, I think if you get someone who truly is mentally in a mindset where they do question everything, some of that value comes from that. I'm not saying there's no value in challenging yourself. I think there's always value in challenging
Oh,
yourself.
yeah.
But I'm saying that some people can get some of that growth because of the way they think.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Some of the growth, not. I still think the growth comes from overcoming hardship.
Yeah, and I don't know that they can grow from that, but I think what they're willing to do is they're willing to put themselves in to situations that are uncomfortable so they can grow. I don't know that the growth comes from that necessarily. But at some point it doesn't really matter, right? Because you can think about jujitsu. Thinking about jujitsu is very different than doing jujitsu. It's a different thing. It's like, my gosh, Chris, you need to go do jujitsu actually. Because you've got close to you, you've got a legend in jujitsu. I mean, you
Your
have,
teacher moved to a different location,
yeah, I
didn't
think
he?
he's down in Laguna Niguel or something like
Yeah, he's
that.
no longer because he used to be right next door to me.
Yeah, he's like right here. Yeah, it used to be right at Moulton and
Yeah, no, that's literally next door to me. So
next door actually. Yeah.
yeah, I
Um,
think he's moved. Yeah, I've thought about it.
yeah. Oh, you know what we got to do? Hey, are you going to be around on Christmas at all? That Christmas week? Are you going anywhere?
No, probably not.
I'm going to come
Uh,
visit you if that's all. Maybe we go out to lunch or something like that.
Sure, sounds good. Sounds good.
And then maybe I can see if Alan, let's see if he wants to go to lunch too or something like that. Because we used to go out. That'd be so fun because I want to introduce you to him. Because
Okay.
there is something, Chris, there's something about working under a master. I mean, somebody that has spent their whole life developing this skill. It's just crazy. I mean, there was times he took me to Ruka that he was training this guy, and this guy in himself was a world champion, second degree black belt. And I remember he was just playing around with Alan a little bit, and he came over with his head down. He's like, I don't even know I don't know what happened actually. I am a world champion in my own right. I I am the alpha dog when it comes to this game actually. And that guy was just toying with me. There was nothing I could do. And you could see he's like, it's like he just came up against something he had no idea about, actually. And he even said he could have killed me at any point, and there's nothing I could. And that's coming from a second degree world champion MMA fight. I mean, it's like I'm like, holy shit, Chris. If you get the chance to be exposed to that, I mean, you can't like that's like saying no, I'm not going to go study with Einstein or something. This is a huge mistake. Even if you can only spend 2 hours with him, go spend the 2 hours.
No, I see the value in that. I really do, because the anyone who has gotten so good at something
Yeah,
that they're beyond being, it's not about being the best at something. It's about internalizing being the best to the point, and then internalizing it to a level where it's almost not even a skill that you measure anymore.
it is. It is. I can't even explain it to you, but sometimes I'd be rolling with, and we go really slow because he's like
Hmm.
the lower belt always sets the pace. And a lot of times, if you start going a little bit, he's like, just slow it down a little bit, please, right? But even if you attack him, he's not going to hurt you. I mean, there was times, Chris, when I was trying to do this, and he would have one pinky on his spatial 3D is so intensely good. He would take just like a pinky hooked under my gi and just moving my leg like a couple inches to the left to the right when I couldn't like move. I mean, it was just when you're experiencing, you're like, this is not like what kind of voodoo magic is this guy doing to me? And it's all physics and leverage and everything, but he's just so good at it. It's just like it looks like magic.
I used to have a Tai Chi teacher in Japan that mostly what he taught was old people just the kata
Yeah.
movements and the like. But he would always have a section towards the end where the younger crowd who was there more for the martial art, he would run them through things. And they do the thing where they kind of push and you were kind of yeah, and you were supposed to kind of let the key flow and feel it. And I don't the guy was an impressive guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he studied in China for years and he knew his stuff. And I was once in the car with him when we were driving, and someone pulled out in front of him last second. He just right around, he just zipped around them without
Yeah.
any reaction at all. Just that's what it was, right? His reaction time was incredible. Um, Before I even realized what was going on, we'd passed the thing, right? So it was an impressive thing, and it showed me that it wasn't just image. The guy actually was internally able to be that calm and that
Oh my
collected.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I would tend to believe that he's probably got tens of thousands of hours of study, you know?
Yep. Yep.
Master Allen was telling me one time, he's like, listen, you guys come to class 3, 4, 5 times a week for an hour at a time, right? So you're getting in maybe 5 hours of jujitsu a week. He's like, just so you know, when I was training in Brazil, we would train 10 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. So it's
Mhm.
like, and my master was better than I am. So imagine training under a 10th degree black belt. I mean, it's like, yeah, now I know why you're so good. He's like, he goes, listen, I've just put in the time. There's no way around this. There's no YouTube video that's going to get you this good.
It makes me think of Karate Kid when he's doing the wax on, wax off,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everything you do when you're living in that environment and being in that environment is actually related to learning.
Oh, it's a clear intention. That's why he's the master. He's like, I'm trying to teach you how but he's very clear about it. He's like, your first day stuff, he'll be teaching you. He's like, make sure you get this down because this is the essence of jujitsu. He goes, you'll be doing this same stuff as a black belt. It'll be just as important, actually. And hopefully, you're going to get really, really good at this because doing this stuff will save your life. This will get you out from under somebody. It's the same technique, and you're going to get way more precise at it. But this is the essence. And it's funny, day one, you learn the stuff, and then 10 years later, you're still learning the same stuff. I've seen him train black belts before, and like a black belt to do it, and he'll mess up, he'll go the wrong way. It's like you went the wrong way. That's why you're dead right now. Went the wrong way. Crazy.